Okay, good morning, everyone. Uh, we're calling to order the meeting of the Eastham Zoning Task Force. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. Thank you, everyone, for coming. We have a long session today to look at what we hope are final drafts or as close to final. Things will continue to be worked on probably for the next month. But we do have our joint session with the ZBA, the planning board and select board and town officials on January 28th. So what we want to do is go through the entire package. We've seen all of this stuff before, have the final conversation so that Jackie and Paul can then put this together. And we will be presenting and getting feedback from all those people on the 28th. So that's sort of our goal for today. We're scheduled to go to 12. We're anticipating one more member joining us. Why don't I say, I did see, Pat, you had sent out minutes from the last.
I did,
Sure.
and Jackie or Paul included them in the packet,
Oh, okay,
which I'm very grateful for. So thank you for that.
okay, sorry.
Does everybody have the documents in front of them, paper or on? Okay. I'm having trouble logging in to share the screen on here, but
I was counting the screen sharing.
we can do it through Jackie's if you want. Just didn't know.
I might have trouble seeing them. I'll try to see because I'm using my iPad for Zoom. So
Yeah, I just can't, for some reason, I can't log in on my account.
Can you let me?
Yeah. I've looked at all of them though, so I'll try and bring them up on my phone.
Okay, so while we're working on the technology, has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? There are minutes that were in the agenda. Can I get a
Yes.
motion to accept the minutes?
So
Kevin,
So moved.
second, Tom,
Tom.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we've got minutes all set. Now, Jackie's still working on sharing this, with Martin not here, are there any sort of, could we go out of order? Are there any sort of, ones that
Yeah,
are pretty?
I was thinking we would do.
Thank you, Jackie.
Inclusionary and site coverage last. We can get through all the other ones.
Okay,
And then I was gonna ask Rachel to join us. When we get to inclusionary, just in case there's remaining housings. Details, right?
okay, so which ones would you like us to start with?
Let's start with the campers and trailers.
can you go full screen?
What page is that on, do you know?
If you're on the PDF, you should be able to use the bookmarks to navigate like a little table of contents.
It's like page 5 down.
Yeah, it's a
Page 5 came.
Actually,
Right after the minutes.
It's right after the minutes.
Okay, storage of campus, mobile homes.
So what we sent out were the latest drafts and then a cover memo for each one and Jackie and I were thinking that, so we can talk about the draft and the memo too, because what I was thinking was the memos can be used to put in the content for the committee report itself. So again, if there's any suggestions on clarity or things on the draft, on the memos too, feel free. So basically this one, there hasn't really been any changes since the last time. We're clarifying that storage of mobile homes, trailer homes, rec vehicles are allowed in the residential district and the other districts that allow residential with a mix of the seashore and whatnot. Those are essentially residential. So that would be inserted into permitted uses. And then this same article will amend section 10, which is the site plan review, to add in the language about what you do if you can't meet the setbacks. And it's the same language that we currently use for the perimeter vegetation. You can get your approvals without public hearing if we've notified the abutters, and there's a simplified, basically an administrative approval for that.
And I noticed so we're introducing it here, but we see it later on, correct? In the setback? table,
Yes.
the actual
Yep,
setback?
'cause- yep. So part of the rationale was, it's never really, it's all, this thing's always been floating around. There's no guardrails on it.
Yep,
So now let's treat it basically like a permit. And so we'll clarify here and then put it in the setbacks. So then we have something to work with when someone actually wants to do this.
okay,
What did we decide regarding boats and boat trailers? We weren't gonna include that, correct?
Basically stayed away from it. We weren't going to address it.
But when in the definition of trailer, it's any vehicle or object which may be portable. So could that be interpreted as a boat trailer?
So when you go to the setback section, this is only gonna get triggered for trailers that are things that are
They're
6 feet
listed
over.
there under that.
Well, that's six, that are 6 feet or over. So if you just have an empty trailer, an empty boat trailer, or an empty flatbed
6 feet in
trailer.
height.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, not like, okay.
yeah, so it wouldn't matter. I mean, we're not dealing with boats anyway, so right now, someone can keep
Right.
parking their boat, we're not
Right.
dealing with, but even if it's an empty trailer. But if you have your trailer parked with like a big piece of like excavating equipment, your backhoe or something, and that's over 6 feet, then that's gonna require the approval.
Okay.
Mhm.
okay. Any other questions? Cause we can move on. This is
No,
a pretty
looks good.
simple
Yeah,
one.
yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. What else do we got here? Then we get the draft. The next one up here is
Prohibited use.
prohibited uses.
So this article will insert, this is the storage trailers. Separate from the vehicle trailers, so basically the metal storage trailers, the pods, that kind of thing. So we will insert language into the prohibited uses section, which basically says that those types of trailers would be prohibited from being used for storage of household goods, materials, or equipment. There are exceptions to that, which would be you could store them on residential if it's in connection with a construction project. That's already in the bylaw. These three exceptions are already in the bylaw. We're just putting them all in here for clarity. So the building commissioner could issue a permit as part of construction, so you can have a temporary one of these on the property. There is a limit to how long you can do that, which is good. You could have one in connection with your service trade. So if you have a home occupation, it's a service trade on a landscaper and whatever. You want to have one of these, you could have one, but that section of the bylaw says it has to be screened, so you'd have to put some fencing or landscaping around it, mitigate it visually. And then the last one is just for municipal uses. So that's the first part, so we'd insert that into prohibited uses, and then we would also insert formula businesses and drive-through facilities as also being prohibited. They're already prohibited in the ECSD. Both drive-throughs are prohibited everywhere in the ECSD. Formula businesses are prohibited in all of the sub-districts except, I forget, there's one sub-district that's allowed by special permit. This would basically cover the rest of the town, in particular District E, which is the area outside around Town Hall, the only other commercial district, so there was potential loophole that we didn't address. So formula business and drive-through facilities would be prohibited. And the last one is the use of non-natural materials. So this goes hand in hand with the fence regulations that we'll talk about. So it was an attempt to address the vinyl material issue.
So it says along street facing property line, along the property line, meaning any particular distance, do we interpret that as?
That, the distances are in the setback section.
Okay, so per the
The
setback.
setback, yeah.
So,
It's not linear, it's just the setback.
Yeah, okay.
so I just have two things. I'll come back to the fence in a minute. After Martin raised this issue, I Googled this a little bit, and there is a real issue. The globalization of trade over the last 20 years has created these storage trailers, and and they do become obsolete. But the condition of these obsolete trailers, are corroding and, it's a whole thing, but they are getting dumped on the market. So it might be just. And I will do this in my long plane ride. It'd be good to have like a couple sentences that says there's a phenomena, this thing happening where this is becoming more commonplace. I mean, because I was surprised when I Googled it afterwards, it was real. So that's just a kind of a reference. Let me ask you this about non-natural fencing materials. This sort of came up because of what we're seeing a little bit in our town, tiny bit, but a lot in the lower and mid Cape, of these long expanses where people have white vinyl fencing and it goes for like a half a mile. So you're really obstructing things. My question is, non-natural fence material, are we gonna get pushback that says, like, there's a lot of wood composite now? Like, is a wood composite fence, like people, I mean, I know what we don't want, but it's sort of like, I'm just asking the
Like a
definition.
hybrid. Is it natural or is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there would. The idea of trying to prohibit the vinyl. I think I kind of researched this a little bit when we were talking about the stuff in the ECSD, because then there's vinyl.
yeah.
Yeah, there's all these composites
Composite,
that are,
Yeah,
they still look like what we think is vinyl, but technically, chemically, they're not. And I went through spec sheets and they showed all, down to the molecular level, it's not the same as vinyl. But so it's like I get into this rabbit hole, like people can get around this and start to argue, it'll be going round and around. So I didn't really have a good solution other than just keep it non-natural. Guess it's still open to interpretation, but I guess for the most people, the average person is gonna be like,
did you see,
Versus
Would-
specifically prohibiting vinyl would get us into that quagmire of, well, it's not vinyl.
right,
It's not wood, but it's not vinyl. So this to me feels like a more general,
okay,
all encompassing.
I just wanted to raise the question, just,
Yeah, this seems like a good compromise to cover
Okay.
that. One item, I did look into it as well, and perhaps an alternative if we get pushback here is highly reflective. So that problem with the white vinyl does cause problems of people driving and reflecting headlights and things like
Yeah.
that. So that could be an alternative if we wanted to go that way.
No, I put a pergola in my backyard, got talked into doing the non-reflected vinyl. I wish I had done pressure treated wood, but it's about 3 times more expensive. It's
To
unbelievable.
do,
Non-reflective vinyl
It's
Is-
expensive.
is so
Wow.
enormously expensive. Okay, I don't wanna,
yeah, we shouldn't dwell on that.
we shouldn't dwell on that, but I just wanted to raise it.
And I
Okay,
think when you picture those walls of fencing, now that we've also added setbacks, these are gonna work in concert with each other.
that's the point. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the point.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a one question.
Yeah.
On the storage trailers, Paul, you said that the storage trailers that are allowed as an exception for service trades are required to be screened. Is that what the bylaw section 2.1.33 or 2.1.3.3 references? So that someone reading this would know that screening is required?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Outdoor storage related to materials or equipment permitted on the provider's premises unless it's prohibited unless concealed from view of neighbors and street by a concealing fence enclosing said materials and equipment.
Okay,
I would
good.
say that you could also landscape it.
Yeah,
If you got,
yeah.
if you get full, like evergreen.
Yeah. And this,
Set of fence.
this will be one, I said to Paula, I've got like 40 hours of airplanes in front of me, so I'm gonna like
Or the Pelicans.
be coming and going, so I'm gonna give you some, but I think there's some narrative. Jackie, when you look at any of these things, you did a lot of research, you gave us a lot of memos. And anytime in this, if you could start thinking about, the task force examined the following. I always think it's good to reference that. So whenever, and you don't have to go into any specific detail about, what Brewster did versus Howard,
Right.
but just indicate, and that, when we start doing that, then it's part of the bibliography. And I think that I think there's going to be a couple things that we have to reference here. One is the sort of aesthetic of Eastham, the green. And this is one, I know that Martin took some pictures. I don't know if we need some additional pictures. This is probably, I mean, I could, even when I get back, try to get the pictures of some of the stuff I saw mid-Cape, but I mean, I just think people are gonna need to see a visual of this. And I think Tom's point about, we also talking about the fact that the vinyl can be a hazard. And that, I don't know if we want to say this, a lot of people are building out and kind of encroaching in the public way right now.
Yeah.
Because there's not a lot of,
So
so,
would the setbacks address that?
yeah.
They do, because we've included something about a site
Yeah.
triangle.
So, I mean, I think there's a little color here because I think, Paul's got his like legacy trees. This may be the burning issue we have a debate on. All right,
Just, next thing, Tasha says, she call Martin.
okay.
It's just to double check, make sure he's not
Yeah,
at the wrong times. So the other thing, just if you notice on the memos, we tried to just put like goals. Again, just
Yes.
trying to relate this
Yeah.
back to wherever possible,
Mhm,
strategic
mhm.
plan or something else.
Yeah.
So again, this can be worked into the
The narrative.
narrative.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
All right, we good on
Yep.
that?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go. Then we're on
Setbacks.
Setback.
setback.
All right, so this is. We're revamping this whole section. Right now, it's all narrative. But given that we're adding new things to it, we just kind of put it into a table format, which I think would be easier to read. So this really becomes a table for. And it's not just structures anymore, so it's because it's. Pools and campers and everything, so kind of renaming it detached accessory structures and uses. Putting in in the table, so putting in a reference also to the ECSD, because there's other setbacks, just so people don't get lost and they can cross-reference, but. Detached accessory structures, nothing changing there. Pools, nothing changing there. We did that a couple years ago. We're adding in the campers, mobile homes, wrecked vehicles. And that will be, we're basically treating them like accessory structures, so a minimum of 12 feet from side, rear, and street. The intersections, we're putting in a site triangle requirement of 15 feet. Again, going back to the other part, like if for some reason someone can't meet that 12-foot setback for their camper, they can go to the planning board, zoning board rather, and get a special permit. So fences, the way I've left it at this point, I've gone back and forth several times on this, but right now I'm proposing that if it's 6 feet or less, you can put the fence on your property line just like you can now on the side and rear. On the street facing side, it would simply be the height of the fence. So a 6-foot fence on the street has to be 6 feet back from the road.
otherwise it's 6 foot all around. On the side and back.
No, you could side and back, you can put it, if you want, you can put it on your property.
Oh, okay, okay.
We
Yeah.
always recommend people don't do that, just give yourself a foot or something, just so you can go on the other side, but technically they can do that. Fences greater than 6 feet then become basically a structure. And so those, we would treat them as a structure. You should be getting a building permit for that. If for some reason you need fence greater than that, you should be getting a building permit, and we treat that like a structure, so those would have to be 12 feet back from all property lines. And then the fence, same thing, it would be 15 feet for, if you're at an intersection or a site triangle, it'd be 15 feet back for any of these items.
And implementation, anything that's already in place is grandfathered in? This just for new construction?
Yeah, we can't make people.
Right, yeah.
What if people have, oh, well, I mean, I think when we looked at the controversy, it was, did we get memos or news articles or something very early in this process about the last time they try to
Yes.
regulate fences? People went a little nuts about it.
Yes.
But so I think that there's a few things that we need to say. I mean, I think we should be really clear to say that this does not affect side and rear yards, that people want security. Also, the fact that it's 6 feet is already is the maximum without a permit. And we're not mandating, but we could probably put language in the narrative, like we would encourage landscaping in setbacks,
Mhm.
but it's not mandated. And we're not requiring anyone to take down their fence right now. Except you might want to be careful of that language, because like, what if they're in violation right now?
That's pre-existing non-conforming.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
what if they put up a fence on the public way? Would that be? I mean, you might have an issue down the road if there was
Yeah,
something
that
happening
can,
at
that
the
can be
roadway.
actionable.
That could be actionable.
What
If it's in
about,
the public way, then it's.
what about mobile homes that are already parked on the property line? Or less than 12 feet? How do we deal with that?
In reality, if someone complained and made a request for zoning enforcement,
It would be addressed? Cause movable.
Yeah, they're not permanent.
Right, so yeah, they're not permanent, okay, not just.
And someone
so
could
we-
still, I have a neighbor who I'm thinking of who has a pretty tight lot and every inch is used and their driveway gives them exactly that space.
Hmm.
And those people have an avenue through special
Yeah,
permit
yeah.
to go make their case and say, I really don't have anywhere else to store this.
Does it cost them? I'm just thinking of questions that could come up during the discussion. Does it cost them to go get the special permit? There's a fee for that, isn't there?
there is,
But we put it in as an administrative.
right, so, yeah, sorry, so. The way it would happen is. You apply to it doesn't go directly to the board first, it's dealt administratively. So we don't have to charge a fee, there's no fee established for that.
Good.
If it went to the board for someone, if it got appealed or something, and then I had to go like, if the other neighbor took issue with the fact that it was
Yeah.
being allowed, they could appeal
That's
it.
what's up in this, the first thing that we looked at, we're now in section 10, which is the site plan review section that lays out the regulatory work.
Oh, actually, no, but you know what, we did it to the zoning board.
Right. Or it's designee, so the ZBA can say
Oh,
can handle
there you
these.
go.
without a public
Did you
hearing.
want that to the planning board?
So we still have to notify just the abutters on the direct line.
It
And if
seems like-
that person says, have a problem,
It seems like we need a way to ease people into this that.
Yeah.
May have situations like you mentioned, your neighbor.
So what happens if someone has put a fence illegally in too high? That there's no grandfathering if you did something contrary to the law. I 3 houses over, they put a 10-foot fence in.
and you're assuming without a permit. Which is what would make it illegal.
I think, well, as an abutter, I didn't get a notice, so
Well,
You
there's
wouldn't for a building.
I would. They might have got a building permit.
Anybody who. Taking away all this. If you've put in a fence over 6 feet, you should have gotten a building permit. So that stands, so.
Okay. All right.
So
There's a
it does,
statute- There's a statute of limitations that someone who put a 10-foot fence in 10 years ago. There's unless it's now causing a safety issue or something,
Mm.
but there's a statute of limitations for. Construction done. With or without, there's a 6 foot and that's set 6 year and a 10-year statute of
Okay.
limitations, certain things.
yeah, I think it sounds like there's the whole issue of pre-existing non-conforming for the things that we're changing. needs to be clarified in the verbiage, in the narrative, because we can't, we're not gonna, we're not changing pools and we're not changing detached structures, but we are changing the campers, mobile homes, et cetera, and the fences. And the fences are semi-permanent structure. So if somebody put in a fence and it's too tall or didn't have a building permit, are they at risk of us coming in, the town coming in and telling them they have to take it down or move it?
Well, so the reality of that, just to be honest, is we're not gonna be patrolling that. If someone makes a complaint and a butter makes a complaint and a request for zoning enforcement, then we would start to look into it. And again, if it's not beyond the time frame that where it becomes basically grandfathered, then we would.
Right.
take
But
it out.
I'm-
Because that's a separate from this. No matter what, even if we weren't doing any of this, you're not supposed to put in a 6+ foot fence without.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just saying, I don't know whether in the narrative, if there's a way to describe that, because what we don't want is a whole bunch of people who have fences in their front yard that are greater than 6 feet suddenly getting all upset and causing a lot of commotion about the change in the bylaw. So if they know that they're grandfathered in, if they got a building permit, then
Yeah, I think, I agree, Carolyn, we should have some general language.
Something like that in,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, just
warrant
to,
article somehow, so.
yeah, just in the narrative part, the bylaw part is all fine, I think, but it's just the narrative part.
So the flip side of what Carolyn is raising. We're not gonna, the town is not gonna go looking for pre-existing fences that don't meet the current bylaw, but what's the positive way to say that?
Right.
I don't know if grandfather is the right word, because this is a little different. This is different. Yeah, so that's,
Yeah, so
you know what I mean? That's something to just think about and what just dawned on me was the discussion last year about the cottage colonies and how people got excited. And so I think we learned from that is to try to say up front that, we're not gonna be the fence, the town is not gonna be the fence police.
Yeah.
Like,
Same thing happened with trees.
okay. So the other thing I wanted to mention, the part where we talk about a minimum intersection setback, I think a visual would be nice there.
yeah, that's,
Yeah, just so people,
Yeah.
people like me will understand the 15 feet from the intersection point and the third line.
yeah,
Yeah, sounds like geometry.
that's good.
Get away from that.
Can I ask a question? Let's say, and I think we're probably dealing with about a dozen or so people that have built right to the property line or over, when this goes into effect. Don't want to make anybody take their fence down, but 10 years from now, they decide to replace their fence. When does the new zoning kick in at that point? Is it
Yes.
explicit? Do we need to make it more explicit? I'm just asking the question. I mean, do we need to say something explicitly like no existing fences will not be, somebody can wordsmith this, but at a point that a property owner replaces a fence, they must adhere to new zoning setbacks. It could be a footnote or something.
Yeah.
It
But
could be
it's the same as replacing a building, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of
Yeah.
falls under the same guideline.
Replacement fences
Yeah.
must meet
new,
setback.
yeah.
Right.
And then in the narrative, we can talk about the fact that we're not forcing anyone to take their fence down, but only at the point
It's for
that
new
they,
fences.
new fences.
Put that in the
Yeah.
letter
Yeah.
easily. Create requirements for, new.
Okay,
Construction.
So I'm hearing that we need visuals. I'm just gonna keep a list of this, visuals on that site triangle, a chart that shows what that looks like. It's no problem. And then
You're-
do you
You're
want
thinking the
some
narrative for
some
that?
pictures of a setback fence versus a
Yeah,
property
Oh,
line
that's
yeah,
fence?
yeah,
In the narrative or in the zoning?
In the report
Bylaws.
for the,
yeah.
in the narrative.
Yeah,
Well, we'll get to we'll get to this debrief and then we'll be sort of, we will come back as a group to, or either come back or circulate a report, which will get into more of the narrative stuff, so we can all.
and that's where we put visuals in.
Put
to
visuals in.
explain,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
what will go at the
Yeah.
joint meeting and public, public session.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on, we've got setbacks. We got, you wanna do site coverage, setbacks and site coverage later,
Which,
or would you like to go to next?
Did you hear from Martin? Did he answer a text?
yes. I think he got, his times mixed up,
Is he coming?
assuming yes.
Oh, okay,
Go to. Do definitions. That's at the,
we can also do the sign code.
Yeah.
You wanna do sign code? Before the definitions?
What page is sign code?
Sign code is on page 33 of the 57.
Got it.
so. Just adding an explanatory note at the top that you should also reference the ECSD, because
Mhm.
there's also signage language in that.
Yeah,
Adding in 12.2.5, the enforcement, of course, this will be dependent on how the other zoning enforcement article goes. But just assuming that goes into place, we'll adjust the language about how the enforcement can happen. And just, I had rearranged some things, so 12.3.2 signs, safety. Safety and location standards. That had been under language just for a permanent sign, but I just rearranged it so that it's applicable to any kind of sign, because we want to make sure that any sign, whether it's permanent or it should have an appropriate support or whatever it is, so.
A good example of that, Paul, is the other day I came out McCoy to go on Route 6. And the sign for, I don't know, the meat raffle or bingo or one of those with was at the Elks Club. And it was positioned just so you could not see any traffic coming off Massasoit. And it was a real hazard.
So that's the kind of thing that can be enforced right away.
Yes.
If we got someone that called up and said, whether it's the building inspector or just the police or whatever, it certainly can go and just move it further back, without any formal process, so. I did, but on a similar note, there is language. I think it's in enforcement. Under that 12.2.5, I added in. The enforcement officers are authorized to remove non-compliant signs at their discretion, so.
Yes.
Mosquito control, folks, the
Yeah.
things that come up every season that are not associated with an actual project on the property, they just. Throw them all over
Yeah, there's
town.
a space.
Yeah, those can be basically made up and,
we buy houses for cash.
yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm sorry,
No.
if you wanna go, the one thing I thought we might have come down to something different was on the feather signs. It appears in this language, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the feather signs are falling under the temporary signs and they have to be taken down at the end of the day. I thought my memory was we were gonna do the May 15th to October 15th period that they could be up, in that they could only be one per property. And I didn't think we were gonna require them to take it down at the end of the day. Because I guess I'm just thinking they're bigger signs and I don't know how difficult that is. Is that reason?
Going back and forth.
Is that gonna
We
be?
settled on having that. time.
I thought there was a time, I thought it was May to October.
Right.
I didn't think it was like 9 to 5 or 9 to, I just don't know how practical it's gonna be to have people, I don't know those feather signs, so that was my. I thought it was different here, but I'm just putting it on the table for discussion.
Yeah, I'm open to discussion on that.
I'm trying to visualize taking one of those down. I think it might be unreasonable to have them take it down like every night
Every night.
and then put it up every morning.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
that won't fly, that's what people out.
and I was wondering, because I didn't hear the other sounds. Where in here is it? Like what,
It's a flag.
it's a flag.
It's under it.
Okay.
Commercial
so
flag being-
It's under 10, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those flags would basically fall under the definition we already have for a flag. I mean, the feather signs would fall under flag, the way that's worded.
So I'm kind of like reword it so that,
Well, they can be one at a time. I mean, sandwich boards are a different thing.
right,
Sandwich boards, here's the specials of the day kind of thing. That kind of generally goes in and out
if
anyway.
they bring that in at night anyway,
And they're typically close to the entrance.
right?
So, I mean,
So I'll play devil's advocate if that's okay.
go right
Just a
ahead.
minute. On the bringing in and out of the flags. No. I don't have to bring these in and out every day, but I will tell you as someone who used to work at a nearby surf shop that had carry in 25 surfboards, some kayaks, some flags, some sawhorses, buckets, beach toys, for lots of operation, that is just bringing stuff back in as part of how you close up shop for the day. So in terms of sort of like is it physically onerous for the people working in those environments? I'm not sure that that's a universally true statement. It may be for some people. And may depend on the size of their flag. I have some concerns about traffic safety for when those flags stay up 24/7, particularly on Route 6. And just, if we're not able to police that they are properly tethered, anchored, not going to get picked up by a gust of wind and thrown onto the highway in the middle of the night. I worry about that. With no scientific evidence of the prevalence of traffic disasters caused by those. Just as a
No,
general,
it's a legitimate, all it takes is one. Random.
just to drive, your general drive through town, because they have this 10-foot.
I mean, during the day that their store is open, whatever they're doing, and if the
Right.
weather gets crazy, whatever, they can pull the sign for safety reasons at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right, it's
Well,
left
it's a
over.
five. Where at 2 in, no one's
No,
back
No,
there.
it's checked.
Yeah, I'm really
I
there.
also think there's an element of like the effectiveness of these things. If they're just out every day, all the time, and people go
Over
by
the line.
then
They don't see.
then there's a point at which you start to ignore it.
Yeah.
At least if there's, so. Which I know this is always an argument of like every business thinks they need as many signs and as much, but. Kind of rooted in this, I don't think we really been explicit about it, but there's just, it becomes a negative, in my opinion, with. All these proliferation of signs and there's no. Coordination among it all. And to me, you lose the biggest asset that we have is we're in Eastham, we're on Cape Cod, people coming from all over the world. To be somewhere different. And then when they just go down, and this is a problem in my opinion, for every town to keep dealing with this. You just see the same signs that you see everybody else,
Mm.
and there's 20 of them. And it's like, to me, so this is why we have these. Strict.
Well, to me,
signs.
if you
It's part
drive
of
through, you
the-
say, oh, here's the ticky tacky section, I always think of the tourist spots, go up to. New Hampshire, the Kankakee Highway, all those spots around there, all of a sudden you have the signs for what's the. Between the bears and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, there, And it's like, here where we are, yeah, you're used to it, you accept it, I guess, but yeah.
Well, there's a certain, charm to that of like, that's its thing, it's that little sections. That's their thing and you get it, but it's different than the rest of where you're going through. So where we have a whole town where everywhere you go, everyone can put 10 feather signs and sandwich board signs, and then you can't, so to me, this is just I'm not an expert in this, but I just feel like you just lose the effectiveness of. I see the same thing when I'm driving up Route 1 in Danvers. It's like,
Well, you
what's the
become numb
difference?
to it.
Why am I in Eastham?
Yeah.
Looks the same. We got all the same signs, all the same lack of coordination, lack of cohesiveness, like.
Well, could I just propose, because we want to keep going? I mean, I think the question of, I don't want to put something in if we realize it's going to be totally impractical. And I don't know the degree of difficulty of putting those signs in a node. And to your point about safety, whether there needs to be more regulations that specify that those signs need to go in and be anchored in such a way. So, I mean, I know you guys have no time, but Jackie, could you take half a minute just to look at this? And whether I mean, we can leave it as it is, but then the question of, people, it's the enforcement issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wasn't thinking of the safety part, when we first started this.
Yeah.
It's always a legitimate thing. That's why we had the May to October was like, keep them out 24/7. But during
I think
the
that's,
busy season, but then,
that's how it broke down last time, I think, was because of the limited time period.
but then, there are businesses that are open year round that want to, so there's no. Or if somebody's having a special President's Day weekend sale or something and they want something out there, just that's where this.
So under this, you could have flags year round. You just can't have them after your business closes at night. And you can only have one.
Again, it's enforcement.
Well, I think
Are we-
there's real-time enforcement, but I also think there's accountability. So yes, we cannot drive around 24/7 to confirm that they've come in, but when somebody has left it out overnight and it pulls out of the ground and it winds up in the highway, I think we then have rules to fall back on to say, this was your responsibility, business owner, to manage this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're accountable to what has happened, whereas it's like, well, everybody said,
And
I said I couldn't do it.
And maybe one way to address that is somewhere to say it's the responsibility of the business owner to maintain the safety of these signs. Because it, again, as I
Yeah,
think
that could
through
be
it,
an issue.
you get some kid who's working for the business, puts
Sure.
a sign out, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So it does have to come with some responsibility, I think.
Okay,
Are these, are these gonna be decided, piece by piece at I guess these will all go to,
Yeah.
town meeting, right? Does each one
Yeah.
get voted on separately?
Yeah.
So I'm
Each
wondering, if that's the case, 1225 talks about the zoning enforcement officer, what if that policy doesn't get approved? Does that screw up this one if it's already in there?
No, because we would just revert back to. The language now is the enforcement would stay as it is.
So you can make it won't invalidate the whole article.
No.
And technically, the building commissioner is the zoning enforcement officer.
Oh, okay, there we
Yeah,
go,
and-
perfect.
Yeah, and that would remain no matter what way. The intention is to keep the building official as the zoning enforcement officer as one of the, so. I think would be.
Okay, good.
The other thing just to point out, so I added in the, finish going through the rest of it. Let me Get back to, we're doing,
we're on
Sign
signage, sign code.
Thanks. Apologies for everybody.
That's it.
There's muffins.
And there's muffins too, substance.
So under temporary commercial signs, I added some new subsections, so. Right now. There is a select board regulation about real estate signs, yard sales and estate sale signs.
Mhm.
Basically, we do issue a permit through the town clerk. But the permit is really for the event. I'm basically putting in. for yard sales and estate sales, it's the same, it's the select board language that's been in place for a number of years. It's just embedding it into the sign code, because then that way it's kind of like ties it together. And then we have some guardrails around the placement of the signs and things.
So is it sort of
So I,
new, it's not necessarily new regs, but they weren't explicitly applied to these types of signs?
right. From my perspective, it's like we're permitting the yard sale, but the thing is really, it's the sign that is the kind of outward facing, the thing that's around town. You know?
hmm
So that was yard sale and estate sale signs.
I did have one question on the estate sale. Maybe it's being too. It says estate sales are required for anyone selling the entire contents of a residence. Is there any problem with the word entire? I mean, I know what you mean. It's different than a yard sale. But
I'm just,
The-
again, I didn't really think on that at all, to be honest. I'm just using the language that's already in a
Okay,
existing regulation.
then let's just leave it.
Yeah.
If that's what was existing, that's fine. Sometimes estate sales, you know, they're not selling the entire contents, or they wall off a room or two that they don't,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I think that's.
that's fine.
minor.
I
You
think
know-
that's understood.
I'm looking, you didn't make any changes to lighting, but this is just now reminding me that the one thing that Jamie Dimitri asked this group to do was look at dark sky issues and lighting. Did we address that anywhere?
Well, I think that's gonna be in the
Yes, yeah.
climate action plan as an assigned thing, for
Okay.
Yeah.
zoning to look
Oh,
at.
so you're gonna assign us to do it next year? Okay.
I touched on that earlier. I think we decided to wait.
But to wait, okay. I'm just seeing it in her
Otherwise,
comment.
that's a big,
Yeah, no, that's a
there's a
big,
lot of pieces.
there's a lot of pieces. Okay,
We do, in the ECSD, we have language
downward
that has to
lighting.
be downward at a certain
Yeah.
angle. And
That's why we need the enforcement, officer, because that's where the call's coming.
Yes, okay. All right.
Apparently that person needs to be on a 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. shift.
Exactly.
So then again, on the temporary commercial flags, banners, sandwich boards, other temporary signs. We are saying that they can only be displayed during business operating hours, and that only one of that each type can be displayed at a time.
Except for
we
the
have to
open,
take-
closed,
Correct,
vacant, no vacant.
correct.
Number 11, I think, takes sandwich board out. So the thought, I adjusted it on the table, but
Yeah.
the thought is not to be overly restrictive, so you can have one traditional flag or one of these feather flags. But you can also have a sandwich. You can have a sandwich board and one of these other ones.
And this is per business or per parcel?
We did per business, so.
Business owns multiple parcels, there's still.
Yeah, so,
Town
the
Center Plaza.
town center plaza or the Village Green, Ben and Jerry's building. I mean, yeah, in theory, you could have multiple,
There's
multiple
multiple businesses.
businesses there, but.
Okay.
Uh,
Any other questions on signage?
I just want to be clear, so the issue of enforcement and safety will be considered and put in here?
Yeah, I have a note about, to figure out how the writing on it, but the clear responsibility for business owner to
Secure.
safely secure their temporary commercial signs.
And then what would be, I'm just thinking the next step, so what if they don't? What's the consequence?
They have to talk to me.
But
They have
no,
to talk to someone about it.
Well, think about if there's a hurricane or just high winds.
Right.
Well, as you reminded us, Jackie, going across Route 6
Mhm.
and someone picks up the
Mhm.
town, DPW picks up the sign the next day. Yeah, they didn't have it that way down. There should be, I think, some consequence for that.
You'll have to think about that. Yeah. Frequent flyer.
Well, it could be just to your point. I think you said this earlier, Jackie, that just some global statement that they're responsible, and for all signage. It's the responsibility of the owner to securely affix signs so that they, you know,
And I think,
don't provide a hazard.
there are, I think throughout the bylaws, the larger mechanism of zoning enforcement related to fines. Which is not, I'm not gonna say your sign blew away in a hurricane, here's $100 fine. But if someone's sign is in the highway again and again.
Yeah.
A repeat zoning violation becomes a different conversation.
Okay,
Right. Well, then it's not just that it blows away, but if it's supposed to come down, yard sale sign's supposed to come down in
Yep.
24 hours. And it's
Yep.
been up for 3 months,
Right,
right?
exactly.
all right, I think Jackie's gonna do a little more look on signage. We're thinking maybe we'll take one of we kept site coverage and inclusionary. We were gonna do that last anyway,
okay.
so all those big thorny things we saved for you.
Because I'm looking, I'm like, you guys, unbelievable.
No.
6:30.
No, we've been jumping around.
I know,
I'm
amazing.
suggesting we take one more topic and then we could take like a 5 or 10 minute refreshment break and
Definitions.
with definitions. You wanna get down to definitions?
Is there anything else in this?
Definitions.
One more question on signs, on the estate sale signs.
Mhm.
How is that different than just doing a yard sale kind of thing? Because I'm wondering, the definition of it is selling the entire contents of a residence. Someone could easily say, hey, I'm not selling my mug, so this mug is gonna stay on this counter and therefore it's not an estate sale.
Yeah, now it's
I'm
a yard
just-
sale. I think that's the practical response.
Yeah.
The yard sale and your regulations are virtually the same.
And they're both,
It's, uh,
yeah, they're both the same, right? Yeah.
So-
Is there a need to do both? I'm just curious as to what the rationale is there.
You can combine them. You could say yard sale and estate sales.
Well, I think, again, this is for the sign. So
Oh, yeah.
the actual event is gonna still get permitted through the town clerk's office.
Which is a different permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Oh, okay,
we
alright,
wouldn't be.
So you need to tie into what the permit says.
We're not proposing that we would have a permit required for the sign.
Right.
Well, sorry, we got them. It's the estate sale. The estate sale and the yard sale signs do require a permit, but it's already the permit. It's already the permit that they get from the town
The
clerk.
sign permit's baked into the event. permit.
Right, but just thinking from the standpoint of simplifying and not adding extra language if you don't need it, if the two are basically the same, can you combine it under one, or does it make sense to keep them
Again,
separate?
I was just keeping it so it's consistent with this, that
Okay,
way if
okay.
there's any.
Just asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other thing I wanted to point out. Under the yard sale signs. Number 5. Added in signs advertising household goods, personal property not associated with a permitted yard sale. Displayed for a maximum of 2 consecutive 10-day periods. That is aimed at getting at the bike, the couch, whatever that's just out there.
Did that bike ever sell?
So you just
Yeah.
have this item that's perpetually out there
Yeah,
forever. And again, this is all enforcement, but at least there's something on the books that says, you can't just
Yeah.
have this bike for sale forever and ever and ever
Well,
all day.
But it only says you can't put the sign on there. I can leave the bike out there. Some
Yeah,
people do that,
but-
they just put stuff out of it by the
Yeah,
curb.
yeah.
and it assumes it's for-
Good point, but if you put the sign on it,
Yeah, okay.
then
Hey, Paul,
you just want, yeah.
so as we're on that topic of leaving the bike out there, what about the new sign on Route 6 for the Toyota dealership, which is the surfboard in the back of the pickup truck parked up on the hill?
That's in Orleans.
It's in,
Olean, I'm sorry, but I know it's in Olean, that's why it's good to ask you about it.
Actually,
How would you feel about that? Is that a sign or is that just a car parked on a hill?
that,
I haven't seen that.
that's actually a billboard, so.
Oh,
Yeah,
Because of
Yes.
the way they have a surfboard mounted.
Well, I don't know assuming if that's not parked on
Their property.
Toyota's property,
I assume it is on the.
but let's just say if it's not, then under our bylaw, that would be prohibited because we're adding that you can't have a billboard, an off-premise sign.
All right.
I'm surprised DOT allowed that.
Well, they probably,
I probably don't know, I mean,
Anyway,
just went up.
Okay,
a couple weeks ago, but
Yeah.
there's people have noticed it.
I mean, you can
So-
park a truck there too. That
but we
has
already
something
prohibit,
Printed on the side.
billboards.
What's the definition of billboard?
Classic one is the empty container truck with that you repurpose as a sign.
I thought we had something about on vehicles. Any sign affixed to a utility pole, tree, or other natural feature, illuminated signs that cause distraction, hazards. Flashing, rotating, oscillating signs, electronic signs, those are all prohibited. Signs or banners on sidewalks, they obscure visibility of traffic. Human signs. for people
Then you're gonna go
carrying-
with any other sign display not expressly permitted.
So I would say someone who's now parking. If that was happening, that would be.
Yeah. Well,
Other,
it's an
that's not-
interesting discussion because like, let's say, look at Old Brook Oysters. You know, right there. That's all, that's right. That's the smart thing to do. Park your truck right in front on Route 6 because that's your business.
Yeah, I don't think there's
But
an
now
issue
he's-
with that. I mean, that's.
But if
just a vehicle.
he paid rent to park his truck somewhere else every night, like let's say he wanted to park his truck, you know, someplace more, even more, or other people want to park their cars out on the highway every night, would we care about that?
I would say that would fall under. The definition of a billboard, which we'll talk about in a second
Okay,
with our
alright.
definitions, but
Okay.
so I've added in under prohibitions, off-premise signs, e.g. billboards, other than those permitted. Under the sign code, which the ones we would are a real estate. A for sale sign, open house sign rather, you can put. Out at an intersection or something.
Yeah.
So there's a few limited things, but otherwise
You know how,
you would,
in addition, when you're in, you know, you see this in the city, you know, there's advertising trucks that just drive around and billboard on.
yes.
So if Willie's or some other establishment, you know, rented that out at front of their lot. And that truck had to sit there. I'm just saying, we should say, you know, any vehicle that's used primarily for advertising versus business practices.
But that would get into the Colebrook Oyster guy.
And, anyways, what,
Or the plumber around the corner for me.
Well, those trucks that drive around with the oscillating moving signs, I think that would fall under,
okay,
moving
Good.
signs are already prohibited.
Okay,
But not the carpenter's work truck that has.
yeah.
The company name and phone number on the
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
That is, it's the truck that person is driving to and from their job.
Now, how about we get rid of the banners and on planes? How do
all right,
Yeah.
let's get to definitions and then we'll take a break and I'll catch you up on
Oh,
what we've gone through. Okay. Definitions.
You explain that for you.
Page are we on?
Yeah, so farmer's porch, simple change to add
55.
side. So farmer's porch is gonna be front and side. That's just always been a weird thing, so.
Right.
Farmer's porches are not counted towards your floor area ratio now. I'll let Jackie talk about net floor area and all that kind of stuff, which we'll dive back into when we go into site coverage changes.
Go into site coverage, this is important. So one of the things in site coverage is, we were just getting really tangled in terminology because. Gross floor area, if you're talking to an engineer, streaming out those plans or an architect, that's. All of the horizontal floor area as measured from the exterior walls. But we had sort of gross floor area and then gross floor area with exclusions for the purposes of site coverage, which is different from gross floor area. For here, so it was actually really in trying to lay out equations for people and the changed site coverage. To say, let's just use the term net floor area, which is your gross floor area. And then subtract all of the things that we exclude when we're calculating that for residential projects, your basement, your deck, your farmer's porch. Your unlivable attic space. Just so that it was, when we get into that section, it really clarified. If I'm using that section for a project, how do I actually do the math to give you the numbers that I need to give you?
It's like a nice clean way to do it.
It is, yeah. And I
So-
appreciate it because it was, as I was reading through the code over the last 2 years, I'm like, this is.
And truly, I actually think for the usability also of the planning board as they're evaluating projects. It will make more clear what
And
number we're
apples-
actually
apples to
talking
apples.
about. So there's that.
Okay, off-premise signs, we just
Did that.
did that. Trailer homes. And these are just definitions, so the
Just-
policy issues we've been sort of talking about, we're gonna go back to site coverage in a minute. Paul, is there anything else of a policy nature you wanna highlight here before we move on?
No, just that we're because of the change for net floor area, we're changing site coverage
Mm-hmm,
to really get at what it is, even though we don't necessarily have any controls over it in site coverage. I mean, in site plan review, we don't have any limits to site coverage, but this at least gets the definition. Correct. And it's referred to lot coverage, all the site and lot coverage sprinkled throughout all different sections. So rather than change every last piece, we're just
We're gonna-
saying slash lot
we're gonna-
coverage to it.
We're gonna combine them.
Yeah, because it's basically used interchangeably, but it's the same thing. So it's just, this is the quick and easy way to just put slash lot coverage rather than.
and you were saying that it doesn't, what were you saying it doesn't?
So the way we've been doing site plan review, we've been calling it site coverage.
Oh,
We're changing that over to FAR and gonna refer to things with gross floor area, net floor area. So we want to get rid of the site coverage definition, but now we have the opportunity to actually call site coverage what it actually should be.
Right.
Which is dealing with the whole site, all the building,
Right,
all the impervious surfaces in the building. All of that is site coverage. We don't have any restrictions on site coverage, but it's just getting the definitions in line.
Well, and it will help in the regulations with the ECSD.
Right.
Where we do have some regulations on impervious surface coverage, which is lot coverage.
so when you
as
say
well
you
as in
don't
the
have,
ground.
In residential.
when you say you don't have, I mean, we have sheds and we have the buildings. But we we have not put any standards in for how much can be impervious, how many
on
things you can
residential.
add, like pools and hot tubs and.
Not on residential projects outside of the groundwater protection overlay.
Okay. All right,
So you include driveways in there, but not all driveways are pervious.
so, yeah,
Right, so that's what
Impervious surface.
impervious surfaces is the
Including,
impervious direct buildings,
Everything
impervious
in there.
roads,
so the
impervious.
driveway is paved.
it might not be,
I know, but it is, if it is paved,
If-
that's part of the plan.
right,
You have to go
It's
through all
not.
this when you're in, for conservation. You know, they do limit what you can have for this. So if it's
Right, so
paved,
if someone comes in and says, I'm just putting shell over dirt. That doesn't count towards your lot coverage because that rainwater can come through there.
So eventually down the road, if someone comes in for a permit for a pool, we'll be able to say, well, look, we've got the pool here, now you're gonna be beyond the limit. And then they'll say, okay, well, I'm gonna dig up my driveway, or whatever it is.
yeah, no, I'm just asking about I don't object to that, I'm just wondering the language, it says, it almost seems like it includes driveways in the impervious surface definition.
So imagine if you just took out everything from including onward. Right, lot coverage is the sum of the area of impervious surface.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's it, and then that's just the explainer of what are those types of things.
Okay, so the interpretation of that when you get to,
Because of the not limited to is kind of like,
Yeah,
But if you have a
For
dirt
example-
driveway, we wouldn't count that.
yeah, okay, okay.
okay.
We don't get tangled in wording. I mean, you folks are the experts in how to interpret the wording. I'm just
So
saying.
we do count, yes, so we're going to count farmers porches in this calculation. In sheds under 200 feet.
if they are impervious.
Okay, because like we're excluding them from the other definition, I don't even know why, but they'll be included in this.
So once my building is decrepit and falling apart, it's no longer counted. It's
Still
very
impervious.
impervious.
But we don't have any limits on site coverage for the residential
Right now,
right now.
right?
I think if we, yeah, we'd have to clean this up if we do that in the
Right,
future.
but in the future, you could have somebody who maxes out on their FAR.
Mhm.
And then they want to build a 200 square foot shed, and then we'll be like, well, yeah, you can do that, because that doesn't come to us FAR. But there could be a point in the future where we'll come and say, but your lot coverage is now gonna get thrown over, so.
Well, and again,
You know,
for residential projects that are in the groundwater protection district where there is a lot coverage regulation.
right, so we're already doing that there.
We just don't have a lot of those projects right now, but we have had one recently and the site engineer had to give us the calculation of all of it.
Okay.
And
It's kind of good to have that because then it makes people when they're property planning decide, do I want the farmer's porch or do I want that extra patio space or whatever? I mean, that's kind of makes it some decision points. That what you can't have both, but
Right. If you're over it.
well, I mean,
Keep my shell driveway instead of a paved driveway.
Well, I'm still kind of thinking based on what we were saying, I had to go back to it on the driveway piece. Someone could argue, a lawyer could argue, well, it's so compacted that it's impervious. Would it make a difference if we said paved driveways in there?
I think
Because now everything else in that
From
included
my-
part is impervious.
from myself going through the process and hiring engineers to do exactly this is the terminology they are using in this.
Okay, all right.
And the same thing on the zoning boards, when people tell us what's impervious, we're all on board. In fact, you get into the fact that there's a asphalt Main Street in P-Town is impervious
Right.
asphalt. That East End wouldn't approve it for projects here. This is years ago, but anyways. So there is a crossover, but it's
Okay.
it's gonna work this way.
and so the other policy issue that we're not addressing this year, but has come up. The examples of folks who are sort of using short-term rentals in a resort-like fashion. When you get into the design and impervious surfaces for the pools and the amenities and the beach
That's gonna be a
houses,
tool.
that's gonna be the tool. So,
That's one thing that the resort versions of short-term rentals
Yeah.
versus just a rental
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
That's the one of the big thing you see is the amount of impervious surface between the pools, the patios, the outside kitchens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The steam
Yeah.
parking spots.
okay, all right. Why don't we do this? It's almost 10:15. If people want 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just please help yourself to a muffin, take a break.
Okay.
We're gonna come back. We have inclusionary site coverage and what else? Do we need?
the zoning enforcement.
And the zoning enforcement. We have those three. So let's,
Which one do you want to do last?
oh,
Just because I want to have Rachel join us for.
we can do inclusionary last, so she can come down in the end. We'll do the enforcement officer quick and hopefully quickly, and then we'll go to site
Okay.
coverage. Okay. All right, see you guys back here in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So we did, I don't think we made a ton of changes to, and unless you had some real, you thought through some things. Back to this. Okay, with the minutes. We went through the storage of campers.
Okay.
That was pretty straightforward. Jackie's been taking a lot of notes because places like fences and when we said, oh, there's a table, maybe there's a reference, there's an option, so we've been going through and giving her that feedback. Prohibited uses.
That's where we put in the pages.
7 of 57. So that, again, the storage of trailers, I mean, the issue with trailers is, the storage of trailer issue is the metal containers. Formula business, we have these prohibitions in the ECDC and the drive-throughs, but this definition would extend these. And then non-natural fence materials was the best definition we've come up with, sort of the prohibition of the vinyl
Yeah.
fences.
Yeah, I'm not learning. Oh, Benji. That's okay.
Okay, I'm on page, this is 7, this is 8, okay. Then we went to,
Oh, sure.
yeah, we have that,
And then, 16, that's page 9.
oh, see, and I'm on 11 setbacks, we didn't really change that. Oh, the one thing on this, there was a footnote we asked him to add to this setback, I'll have to ask him what the footnote is, my memory's.
So how much of this is new versus what we had before?
It's a reformatted table. And the only sort of new thing is the campers, because the campers were undefined, so the
Oh,
campers got the
campers.
12-foot.
So this, so
And the-
campers, mobile home, rec vehicles, trailers, higher than
Than
6
6
feet.
feet.
in school. So
So the boat trailer that doesn't have a boat on it,
that's okay. Do we exclude boats?
we're not touching
That's,
boats.
oh, I know, but do we almost have to say this doesn't include boats?
No,
No, okay, I agree.
because that would be, yeah. And then fences, this is,
You know how many times I've been asked about that on Christmas?
Oh, really?
Everybody's like, so what, I heard we're doing something about
boats,
boats.
oh, everybody
No,
wants.
no, no one's touching boats.
No one's touching boats, I know. Fences is, this is just quantifying in the setback what we've been talking about. If you're public facing, you want a 6-foot fence, you're back 6 feet, 5 foot, like 4. So that's,
So we're talking about the fence 6 feet or less. Does that include the sides or just the front?
well, the
Oh,
definition of
there's
front
like
facing,
that side setback,
yeah, it's,
minimum side setback.
Yeah. and then,
How do we account for pools be, you know, where we just said about campers have to be set back from the front?
we didn't address, I think we punted that one because we couldn't.
It says, check it, minimum street setback. Well,
No, it's 30.
no, not for campers.
Oh, for
So
campers,
if you have your camper, you have to be 12 feet,
yeah.
at least 12 feet in your driveway.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
I think that was new.
And if you have a hardship, you'll
your driveway is there, yeah.
they'll be in the ZBA, they'll be talking to you.
Blueberry? Looks like it.
Oh, just take the whole thing. You've been wasting away after being so sick.
I eat all this and I can't pick out on pizza tonight.
All right, so you have the fences. Floor area ratio. We just did that. Well, we didn't, we're gonna come back to this. This is gonna come into the development limits. And we haven't done residential lot intensity. And then we haven't done inclusionary zoning. So we got all of that fun stuff, and we haven't done the enforcement officer.
No, we did do enforcement officer.
We have not done that.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Well, we were talking about the fact that with embedded language, assuming there's an enforcement officer in this thing.
Oh, that's right. You were saying, what if it
Yeah.
one passes and the other doesn't?
Go right ahead, please dig in here.
I'm a hat person. Well, thank you. Oh, where's your hat?
I'll
You
let
take
you
your hat
tell.
off?
I took half.
Yeah, here's a.
I brought a knife over, so.
Oh, I'll take this half. I love cranberry as well.
Want to do the zoning enforcement officer, I just think we get that quickly. So it is, it's
Matt, don't back up yet.
I'm not gonna-
But at some point, he was arguing that. Okay.
Happy New Year.
Wasn't legal, but then.
Not too late to have.
No. That memorandum saying there was an amendment to the code that the new model is actually allowable.
I mean, just gonna have to wait for legal to.
Oh, okay,
But
so Carol, has Carolyn weighed in at all?
no,
Okay, all right, we can just do that.
Right, thanks for the muffin.
Oh,
Great.
you still get another 4 minutes more.
So I had this meeting on my calendar on 2 or 3 different locations. So when I got up this morning, I'm like, I gotta figure out which one of these is the actual meeting.
Which one's the real one?
And I sat down, I got consumed by the meeting.
Oh, my God, isn't that
And
awful?
nothing about anyways. Is everybody familiar with these missiles that got taken out by Ukraine 2 weeks ago?
Ukraine kicked them out?
Yeah, I get to that mix. And what about, and the Russian tanker that just got taken?
Yeah, the worst tanker I've been watching up.
Yeah.
Anyways, the relationship between those things just happening. These missiles that got taken out was a multi-billion-dollar investment by the Russians. And they just moved them, because these are the big hypersonic missiles that Putin's been talking about for a decade. And they just moved them into Belarus, which made all these European capitals susceptible to these new missiles.
And then I'm gonna.
And this was an unbelievable organized mission to take them out. The Russians had all their best defenses around their missiles.
Really good.
And between drones and 2 F-16s, and it's really interesting how they did it. I've really got tied into this stuff. This basically put Russia on their back feet to such a degree that between capturing Maduro and out of his own palace surrounded by people,
It's not.
taking out these most valuable missiles that Russia just deployed 2 months ago, and then saying, "Oh, screw you! You're going to attack a nuclear submarine trying to protect this oil tanker. Well, we're just going to nullify that." They made that thing go dark. Took that. So, anyways, these 3 attacks all directly against Russia in the past 2 months, and we're so consumed by the media that we're not paying attention to this. This is like much. Anyways, to me, it's like
But it-
this is a big deal. That we're-
It is a big deal, but I think about, you know, what is, you know, what, I'd be curious about the US involvement in the taking out of the Russian missiles. Is that a European, Ukraine execution?
Every piece of weaponry that was used by Ukraine last month was American.
Was American? But were we providing the intelligence or are they doing this? It's interesting.
I don't know that, but either way, like the beatdown that we've just put on the Soviet Union in the past, but by these 3 events, they're all related. You know, this,
Mhm.
yeah, because that's one thing you think, anyways, we're getting well into this tier.
Yeah.
So that's.
And I'm not cheering for any side, I'm just saying that.
No,
this is-
I'll say one thing now,
About
that
zoning enforcement.
I don't know the role of the US weaponry, I don't know the role of the US intelligence or anything else.
Oh, yes.
But
And
the
25
Ukrainians
to
have,
talk to people.
throughout this whole debacle, have proven to come up with some
My
really
God.
interesting toys and real interesting and bold techniques. I would not want to get them mad at. Can you imagine if they had, if they're more established militarily on their own? You would not want to go against that. It's
Oh, that, right,
fantastic.
it's destabilizing is what it is, because it's changing. Yeah. How much of investment it takes for you to be.
So that's where you were.
That's why I was concerned by the news, I'm like, oh, let me read into this, because. Well, that's what the question is, why is, you can go back up. Why is Venezuela shipping oil to Russia? Russia has all the oil in the world, and then you realize that they have to mix the oil together, so it's like, it's
It's a process.
a side question.
Okay, now okay,
Hard to follow that though.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Carolyn, you're here, you're with us, great. Give people exactly 1 more minute to get a little more muffin down. And we'll be fortified.
Yeah.
They came from the new place,
From
Lucky's,
From
Lucky's, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, lucky
Really
for this
good.
job.
I bought out the store.
You must have.
I did, I went in,
The
There was-
guys there.
Thank
there
you.
were 8 muffins and I said, give me the 8 muffins.
Yeah, Lucky and Nemo.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm. So, yeah. You wanna eat the other half of that?
Oh, after a while.
I'm having the last of the Christmas cookies.
Oh, Oh, good.
Pass them over this way.
All right.
There's only one left.
10:25.
Oh, no.
We got a couple big ones and hopefully the code of zoning enforcement officer. Paul, why don't you roll with that?
So this amendment would empower the town manager to be able to appoint other staff to serve as zoning enforcement officers. Right now, the enforcement of zoning in the bylaw is appointed to the building commissioner, and that's pretty standard. And it makes a lot of sense, and this would not change that. It would simply allow additional staff to be able to take on some of those responsibilities. So in the memo, I tried to just outline that this is trying to put the regulatory tools in place. Doesn't mean we have to use them. Our building commissioner has been doing a very good job at this since he's been here. He has been on top of it and everything, but this is just, I look at it as what's the capacity of the department and the town, the organization as a whole. Zoning enforcement, as we've been discussing, as you see, it takes time and effort. It's not very fun job to do, but you know, but to do it right, it's really a three-pronged approach. We want to educate people about all these bylaws and regulations. We want to do the enforcement. And there's also the administration piece. So there's the enforcement, responding to these issues, but there's also the day-to-day making zoning determinations. Somebody wants to do a project, an attorney comes in, or the client, I'm gonna do this and that. We work with them and we produce zoning determinations after we review the plan to say, okay, based on what we're seeing, you need to go to zoning board, planning board, historic, such and such. We do that. That's how really how the whole regulatory permit process flows. So in order to do all this, it does take time. It's detailed work. And as a department head, my view is it's unrealistic to expect one person, whoever they may be, to be able to do all this on top of their day-to-day. So again, this doesn't mean that we have to use it. It just puts, so in order to pass, it just creates the ability for the town manager to have some flexibility. The other thing that's kind of like a nuts and bolts thing is if someone's out on extended leave for any reason, technically we don't have anyone to do any zoning. So that would fill that gap too. In the draft, I've tried to be very explicit about who has jurisdiction of certain things. So certainly anything with zoning that relates to building code, dips into building code or relates to a structure or something, clearly that the building official as one of the zoning officers should take precedence over that and take control of that stuff. And a lot of zoning is that. It is involving structures. What's left over is the trees, the fences, the signs, that kind of stuff. And like I said, the zoning determination, letters, drafting, I was working with people. So the other thing is just kind of trying to clean things up in the current section of this bylaw. It talks about the zoning board of appeals. I added in another section for planning board just for consistency. It basically reiterating that we have a zoning board and we have a planning board, and here's who they are, what they do. The reason I did that is because later on in this draft, where we talk about powers and duties of the zoning enforcement officer, in several sections of the bylaw, there is already authority appointed to a designee to do certain things, and that would be the fencing, the trees. There's a minor site plan review for ECSD. All gets appointed to a designee, they're not named. This would basically clarify that that designee is going to be a zoning enforcement officer. I think that's, then we outlined the process for zoning enforcement, basically outlining, how we would do the issue the fines. This is based off of how the Conservation Commission does it with the conservation agent, so I basically kept that language, for consistency.
You know,
Anything?
I zoomed into the, budget presentation last week at the select board, and I came in about 10 minutes late. And I thought I heard something that said that the town at this point in the budget process didn't think it could have an inspector, even though we had short-term rentals is going to generate, annual inspections of building code. And then there was some reference to legislation to try to oppose this because it's an unfunded mandate. Is there some legislative action to deal with the issues of short-term rental inspections and things like that? Is that
Not that I'm aware.
that should, no, okay. I came at the end, so I didn't, someone was making a reference to that. So. Okay, and obviously Basil has, he has. I mean, my understanding is that the building commissioners, their professional association has historically had very strong positions about not designating any of their authorities to other folks. Although my understanding is from work that reports, legal documents you gave us earlier in the year, there actually was amendments to the state law that allowed these kind of designees. So
Yeah, 48 section 7
Yeah.
basically allows the town
just to do,
delegate.
do this.
and assign
Yeah.
who wants it. Separate from the building code.
So there's the issue of, do we want to have this? And I think we've all been in agreement, we want to have it. And the technicality of this language is really gonna be, it's really gonna be town council call, correct? I mean, someone's gonna have to reconcile.
Yeah, so I mean, this is based
Position.
on the research I've done. I
Yeah.
provided that newsletter from a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think it's still valid that, and it has been done. There are examples in other towns that have. I guess this is a little bit of, I will say what I'm proposing is a little bit of a hybrid because there's the ability for a town to appoint a zoning administrator. And the zoning administrator can be empowered by the zoning board to carry out some of their duties, basically to make administrative approvals or do other functions. That's separate from the enforcement. So I'm combining this into a hybrid for, it could do admin and enforcement, and I'm basing that off of my research and how I interpret the regulations. So this still has to go to town council. That's where, I guess, the real, if there's some legal reason why we can't do this hybrid and it has to be.
Right. I think that's the right approach, Paul. I think considering the size of town that we are, we don't have the resources to have both of these positions, but we do have the need for both, if not full time. So I think that's the right move.
Yeah, and this, just to Mary's point, this does not require any new staffing.
Yeah.
This would just, it's really meant to, let's utilize the staff we have to the best of our capacity.
But in the future, if the town chooses to budget this 2, 3, 5 years from now, let's say there's a lot of development going on in Northeast, then there's nothing you'd have to change to staff this position then.
No, because, I mean, to me, ideally, like, if we had additional capacity in the building
That's
inspector.
true. You wouldn't have a dedicated person for this anyways. You'd have
No.
one more person on your staff. But
If we were to bring on another local building inspector. And they had the capacity to do all of the day-to-day operations and do all the zoning, clearly that's what I would advocate for, but it just, but all this does is say. You got 10 building inspectors, all those are the zoning enforcement officers, that's it, but if you don't, then you can have somebody in.
It gives you the flexibility to move your staff.
Right, and it's just based on. Staff capacity and personnel and who we have, and I would imagine that. Fluctuate over time as people come and go or changes, so.
This did have a quick question. So if someone gets a stop order, can they appeal that to planning?
Stop work order.
Yeah. I saw Cecil write one the other day, so I was like, and now I'm looking at the language here that's saying any person aggrieved by a decision of the zoning enforcement officer may appeal to the board. So
If it's related to a zoning issue.
versus
They
the
have-
building code.
Yeah,
Okay. So someone's doing something, just didn't get a permit. There's nothing to appeal there.
yeah, I mean, they could, but they would have to appeal to the state building code.
Yeah, Paul, maybe I want to hear that one more time. If if the zoning enforcement gives them a stop work for something that's related to building code, that gets appealed to the state building code?
Correct.
What if it's, for example, someone's proposing to cut down a legacy tree? Does that go to the planning board and they want to appeal it? Who does that go to?
I would say that would go to the regulatory board, because that's a zoning issue.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Stop work has been placed on because of a zoning violation, not a building code violation.
Right. Okay,
You earlier on, I have an October 24th document you did, and then the backup from the legal analysis of the zoning enforcement. You have a lot of really good rationale language in this memo. What I would just suggest about, it's kind of in bullet form, like the pros and cons. You might want to just eyeball this memo. Because as I was reading it, I was going, oh, that's a good point, that's a good point.
Well, I think most of that we put in.
Did you put in it?
Yeah.
All right, then I haven't crosswalked it, but maybe it was just the way it was laid out. It was good, okay.
Yeah,
Any-
so again, ultimately, town council will direct us as to if there's something that we can't do for some reason, but
Well, since we're gonna be going out with this in a report, can we get town council to weigh in sooner than later?
yeah, my plan was after today was gonna
Okay.
send all the stuff off and after to reviewing.
Okay, all right.
So,
So-
yeah, do you intend to have multiple zoning enforcement officers? I mean, based on what you were saying and also some of the language in here that says the building official still is a designated zoning enforcement officer. I think it says that 912 at the end.
The intention would be
Multiple.
multiple.
So at the top, maybe just something to discuss with council is the zoning enforcement. Oh, I see. It says officers. Okay. So can the town manager designate a list of officers that doesn't, for some reason, doesn't include the building official? Based on this language, I wouldn't think they would do that, but
Well, the building official is the only one that could do the building code, so they couldn't sort of not appoint a building commission.
yeah, I'm just wondering about the wording
Okay.
to, I know what you're trying to do, but in terms of questions on how that would work.
Well,
It doesn't say
Yeah,
the building official is always one of
well,
the,
they don't have to be.
except
if
at
you
the
don't-
bottom of 912, it does suggest that. Building,
Well, this is where if you're getting into an issue that is the building code.
they are the building
Official has to
official.
be, yeah, so that's why there's always gonna be the implementation of this is gonna be. Someone may say this is a zoning issue, and then we look into it, it's like, no, it's actually a building code issue, the building official has to take. That's their,
I hear, I'm just worried about getting tangled up in some legal ease if some lawyer comes in someday and says, well, these two people disagree and your
Yeah.
bylaw language suggests that they
no,
don't.
I hear what you're saying,
Or
yeah,
something like that.
we'll double check,
Yeah,
it. But
it's
the
just up
reason.
to Go with council.
The state statute talked about. You can have someone else because you may not have a building
Right.
official in
Right.
town for some reason. And so that's what it says, in the absence of that, the select board, they could appoint anyone really, but you would appoint the next best qualified person to do it. And maybe sometimes that might even be the select board themselves, in a little
Mhm.
tiny town with, 20 people.
Yeah.
It's just, they're empowered to do that. But the vast majority, in all fairness, of towns, probably it is the building official who does it, just because there's a
Makes sense.
natural. And most towns had a building code before they had zoning, going way back, so it was just a natural flow, and there's nothing wrong with that, and like I said, there's nothing wrong with having, and I want the building official to remain as a zoning enforcement, absolutely makes total sense,
It
it's
does,
just
it
a
does.
capacity issue of can one person, whoever that person is, however great they may be and well organized, is it realistic to expect they're gonna be able to do all of the stuff? And if that person is able to do it, that's wonderful. But this is a tool in case we have to adjust.
Right, right.
Well, and it also gives the town manager some flexibility for the things that are not related specifically to building code, for all the other zoning related things, including the outreach and education and communication. It gives the town manager the option of, as staffing changes from time to time, using the best skill sets of the staff. Somebody in the planning department might be really good at that outreach and education, and the building officer might not be. It allows you to take that sort of a more administrative function and move it around a little bit as it plays best with the staffing for the town.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking forward to 50 years in the future, some political maneuver by someone, subverts the intent of what we're trying to do here.
Well, that's
Okay.
beyond my 6 months.
I mean, that's also why this then goes to legal. counsel,
Exactly.
And our bylaws, all of them, right, go to the AG's
Because they'll know
office.
better about how.
Yeah.
So it's our own town council, but then it's also the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
So there are these safety nets, I wanna call them, in our writing these things.
All right, what do we think? Should we get inclusion?
Wait, before we
Oh,
leave that, so
okay.
we haven't talked at all about Basil's memo.
Right.
And I'm curious about your reaction to that. Because I could see that, there could be someone whose primary job is to promote development and guide development in the town. And then wearing the other hat is as a designee of the building commissioner or the zoning enforcement officer, being in a little bit of a conflict. And I'm just wondering how, I mean, what's in what Basil has written, and I don't know him at all. But it seems like he has some issues.
And will we be presenting two competing points of view at the joint regulatory board meeting? Is there a way to resolve it before then?
I guess this memo from Basil represents his interpretation. My thought is this is gonna get reviewed by legal counsel. If his points are valid and there's reasons, then we'll have to resolve that, and that may change the nature of this proposal. I have no problem sharing this amendment. I mean, it's directed to me in the task force, so I shared it with you. Given a copy to the town manager. I would never suppress any viewpoint on it, so I have no problem having it out there. I think some of the points raised in here, I think every town staff person, part of their job is to work with residents on their questions and their projects. And so building officials routinely meet with homeowners and developers and attorneys to talk about their project and how to navigate through the regulations and the code. And that's what Jackie and I do as well. We don't approve projects. I just think there's some validity to that, but I don't think any staff person who works in the, land use piece is removed from that situation, so.
Right.
The planners, the building officials, the health agents, the conservation agents, anybody who's working on these types of projects, we're all meeting and guiding. That's part of our role, is to help guide through
Mm-hmm.
to navigate through the regulations and so forth, so.
Has he had a chance to look at the recommended updates?
I gave him everything.
Yeah. I don't think it's so much a legal issue as it is a political issue and a staffing issue for the town, just for the town, just to figure out how to navigate.
Well, I think Pat, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, what I've understood about this, and this is why I was saying before, when I say it's a political issue, it's not a unique Eastham issue. There has been a movement to go to a planning department that is some sort of referred to sometimes in a community development model, as Paul has articulated that. My understanding is that the Building Commissioners Associations has historically viewed those models as diluting some of their authority. And as an association and as a profession, they've opposed some of this. It has gone forward in many towns, but they have a professional opposition to it because of their viewpoint that no one else should have this role. So when you say, is there a political issue? I think there is a broader political issue about this sort of where this professional thing lies. I don't think it's an Eastham specific. Am I
No, I think
saying
that's
that right?
accurate. The community development model of organizing an department, it really has to do with administrative oversight. It doesn't have to do with administration and enforcement of building code. That is clearly with the building official, and there's no doubt about that. So it's an administrative oversight of departmental function, not in code enforcement, not with the duties and powers of issuing and withholding permits and all that kind of stuff. It's the day-to-day administration. How does the department function? Who's doing the work? This is what I view as a department manager, looking at how does my department function and how does that relate to how the services we're providing? Can we put into place the tools that we have the staff capacity to do that? But within that, again, as we talked about, is making sure that we're carving out the zoning issues apart from anything that might bleed into a building enforcement, a building code issue. Because sometimes, these things start out as we don't know where it is. So that's why I tried to be as careful as I can in this amendment to say that there's going to be clearly things where the building official should have absolute authority to do these things, as it's a building issue, or it involves a building or a structure or safety, But the community development model is not intended to step on the toes of the building official. It's an administrative oversight, it's departmental functions, it's staffing capacity, it's the management of the day-to-day department, not the enforcement of the building code.
Well said, Paul.
Yeah, very good.
So the language in here, you think covers his concerns?
I think I'll just chip in that Paul said, send it to the lawyers, and let the lawyers come back
Yeah.
and say, here's what the town, and if the people vote on a town meeting. With all this information, we people in the town get to decide.
Yeah, like I said, I think I'm looking at this again as what's the best for the department.
Oh, yeah,
For
yeah.
the services we provide to the town. If there's a legal reason why we can't do this, or regulatory legal reason,
it out
then
there.
fine, then we can't do it. So be it,
Or you
we'll
might-
adapt some other way.
But just thinking forward to the joint meeting, if the building side comes in and Basil says, this doesn't work. we're back.
Are we gonna have I would wanna have we can have that debate in front of
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
15 people. I mean, we should have legal, that's why I was asking about Carol.
That's-
We should have clarity,
Get some
Yeah.
legal feedback
Yeah.
before that.
yeah, because we don't need
But
to,
it's not just legal, it's also his opinion and which matters, right? And do words like, where the enforcement requires action under the state building code, the building official is designated. Does that solve his concerns, or is his concerns deeper than that?
Well, I think the first step is to make sure that is what's proposed
Of course,
doable.
yes, yeah.
Legally,
yeah.
can we do it? If the
Yeah.
answer to that is yes, then is there some fine tuning where we make sure that
Right,
our team is comfortable with how we would actually carry that out? And which I'm totally open to making sure that works on for
Mm.
that
There-
purpose.
There's no point in the future where Jackie's gonna go in and say, that's not the right beam. You guys have to put in a
Right.
bigger beam there, or,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think we all agree with how we think it's gonna work, but let's,
And nobody in this town, from the select board, town manager to anybody other than the building official, has the authority to question that. It's anything with the building code is,
clearly, clearly.
Okay.
well, Jackie would love to.
I just need to go get my CS, well, then I qualify for inspector.
All right. So, yeah, have that other cranberry. Can't leave that hanging there. Dangling participle. Okay, so in terms of the, we are gonna look towards Carolyn's interpretation, and that's where we'll leave that. Why don't we do site coverage? What page is that on?
35,
35?
thereabouts. Oh. I'm not jumped.
Go
18.
18, okay. Okay. Oh, when you start, I'm gonna excuse myself for a minute. I was talking to Martin.
should gonna turn it over to Jackie, because she's the brains behind this whole operation.
Much credit I wanna take. Okay, so. Just to revisit our sort of why behind it all is. Some language adjustment in here for one, to make the bylaw. On the size of residential projects more user friendly. Both for engineers, architects, homeowners, as well as on the regulatory side, where confusion has come up. Or where there's felt like the board has felt like it is hard to apply some of the current site coverage standards when projects, particularly when projects feel too big. Well, I'll just take you through the additions. So just to be clear in this, right? This is sort of cutting out this whole chart. There is still a provision for pre-existing non-conforming structures, because there has to be, we've just moved it. There's still provisions for lots containing more than one dwelling, we just moved it, so just for ease of reading, I just listed those as cut. And then I will show you where they are moved. Although we have all of these definitions in section 21, Paul and I agreed that particularly because there are some changes here, it is helpful for users of the bylaw to have the key definitions handy. So we have added a definitions section.
The only question I had there scribbled down was, we're not explicit about where garages count and where they don't. Because in gross floor area,
Mhm.
the garage will count, but net floor area, the garage will not count. I understand, but we don't, but the word garage isn't in any either
So-
definition.
Great. Garages still count.
In which case,
Garages count in both cases. So gross floor area is the sum of all floors of a building or structure, whether they're used for a human habitation or not. But I think that's great. We could add it in here. It shall include all areas, including basements, mezzanines, attic. I can add
I think that-
garages there. Yeah, whether detached or attached. Great.
Right.
Make that note.
And I guess once you've got the net floor area, once you cut it there, then it flows down into gross floor area.
Right.
Net floor area.
That's
Very
helpful.
thanks.
Thanks. And then, as I said before, that net floor area just gives us a specific term when we are talking about gross floor area minus those exclusions that have been in place for a couple of years now that say, we're not going to count your basement against you, your attic areas, your farmer's porch, because it's a desirable architectural detail, open porches and decks, detached, so small sheds under 200 square feet. So that sort of, I think, helps in the math.
ADUs, how do they figure into calculations?
They are a part of gross floor area.
Gross floor area.
Mhm. Yep. Okay. So then we get into the math. The math. And certainly, if math is your strong suit and you see a problem here, let me know because it's not mine. But try to make this as simple as possible. The big change, I'm actually gonna jump down just to this chart. Right, so previously we had the chart with the bands every 10,000 square feet. What we have talked about in this group, arrived at, was the idea that on our small lots in town, which we've shifted from that smallest band was up to 10,000 square feet, putting it here at under 15, so 14,999. Has a maximum FAR, floor area ratio, of that 0.15, which is equivalent to 15%, if your brain likes percents better than decimals. That represents a reduction in allowed development on lots under 10,000 square feet. It represents no change from the current for lots between 10,000 square feet and 15,000 square feet. So we'll start there.
You have a table with that. Is that
Yes.
here?
In the memo.
It's
It's
in
in the
the,
memo.
yep, so we'll take a look at that too.
Okay.
So then the greatest change is gonna come for lots 15,000 square feet and over. And I'll jump back up to the memo so you can really see where they lay out. We can do a couple of examples if that helps. This is going to reduce development for a lot of those mid-range projects. From 20,000 square feet, actually from 15,000 square feet, up to 40. For those projects on lots that are 40,000 square feet or bigger, this is already the same calculation. At 11%. Probably the most, I think one of the most substantial changes in here is reducing that maximum, what we're now saying, net floor area. So the maximum sort of built environment, permanent roofed structures is at 4,800 square feet, whereas in the current chart for those very large lots, it's at 6,000 square feet. So you've seen that before, it's just sort of laid out clearly here now.
As we reviewed this really quickly, at zoning last night, and, our Bob, our realtor, was on the board and said, just give me something I can point to. So this couldn't be better for him.
Yeah.
He was very happy to just see, just simple table, I can point to it, it's not changing.
That's great to hear. It is simple. What we've done within the bylaw,
I'm sorry, I was talking about Bob Sheldon in case I was.
I caught that. Within the bylaw is just put in what those equations actually are with some examples sprinkled throughout in each case. So that again, sort of user friendliness for people who are particularly going through site plan review or trying to figure out if they're going to have to go through site plan review. The hope is that this makes things a little bit easier to navigate. Beyond the chart,
I think the example you used there, though, I can maybe put a pin. You took the largest one. We don't have any 6,000 square feet property. I'm just wondering whether
you mean 55,000?
55,000 square
We
feet.
do.
We do?
It's about an acre and a half.
Oh, no, we have those lots. We don't have buildings that size.
Correct. This is
Right.
the parcel size.
Okay.
So on a parcel with a lot area of 55,000 square feet. So this example,
This is gonna show you where someone may think they can put a 6,000 square foot, but they're not gonna be able to.
Oh, because it's the greater of,
There is,
the lesser of.
there are examples of, for instance, when you're on Bees River, the property adjacent to Bees River, and there's conservation restrictions on everything else. But that's a multi-acre property with a old hunting lodge on it. When those go on the market, those could be 7,000, 8,000 square foot houses that
Yeah.
would see them everywhere in town.
Right.
So.
so that was important with having
Yep, no,
this
okay.
bar calculation that was something this group expressed, is to still have a sort of absolute cap.
Yep.
Even on those very large lots. So this section is just clarifying, even when your FAR math says you get 7,000 square feet, you are actually still regulated at 4,800. These are the special conditions, that we just sort of shifted here into their own section, and again, with some examples to help people work through them. So that the two special conditions that we generally are gonna deal with are pre-existing non-conforming, which we know we already have many, and how that works. So I'm gonna pause there just for a moment to remind you that legal counsel made it clear to us that we do need to have a carve out for pre-existing non-conforming expansion. Just as it was before, this is tied to the number of now you're FAR, what was your site coverage? So that's gonna be 15% or 11%. So in most cases, even in large projects, these are generally a couple hundred square feet of addition. This is not allowing for, you know, an already 3,500 square foot house to, you know, grow exponentially. And would still, I guess, and maybe we need to put this in here explicitly, would still be subject to that 4,800 square foot cap.
And I'm not sure we can solve this, but at the time we had the discussion around, my issue here is that the house that's most overbuilt gets the permission to do the biggest expansion.
Yeah.
As opposed to, if everybody's on a 1/4 acre lot, you said, no matter how big you are, you can do 200 square feet.
Right.
You know, or something else, but
I agree with you, and I think we have to take the advice of legal counsel that says we have to have this allowance.
but they're actually saying the way we had to do it. I understand we have to let them do something. But does that something have to be a derivative of their current house size?
I don't.
And what would,
No, it doesn't, but.
Like if you just said a flat out, yeah, everybody can expand by 200 square feet, otherwise you have to go through the, you know. At the bottom's 200 square feet.
I mean, we could do that. It would just be, I think this was just trying to tie it into the mechanics of the numbers we're like using rather than.
do we have the hypotheticals though, we're saying at 11%. If you're on 30,000 square feet and you're already pre-existing non-conforming.
Mhm.
What kind of numbers are we talking about in terms of expansion?
So there's one example up here, on a 20,000 square foot lot, which is now reduced from 12% to 11%. You have a pre-existing house at 2,300 square feet, so oversized for the lot allowed. Not by much, but some. Their expansion is allowed as 253 square feet.
So it's pretty de minimis.
It's small. Now, if you have a 3,500 square foot house that got approved. Don't know if we have any that big that got approved on those very small lots. It is related to the size of your existing structure, which is Martin's point. If you're
360 square feet.
right, if you're the worst offender, you get the most.
I
It's
think
still very
in that,
Oh, well, yeah, because 11%.
Yeah,
Right.
in that scenario, I think. It's likely that setback issues would come into play.
That's true.
So you wouldn't be able to, unless it was pre-existing, if it was pre-existing non-conforming special permit, if it wasn't, then they'd have to go for a variance, prove a hardship, which again would be very difficult to prove. To be able to get that.
Right.
So a very large house. That somehow is on a small lot. It's still probably gonna have issues where you come into zoning or planning board. For a discretionary approval.
But an existing house that's conforming doesn't go through that percentage
Correct.
expansion calculation. It goes under the regular,
So you,
uh,
so if you have a house that's 1 foot below the limit,
Mhm.
what's their ability to expand? Do they get that 11% as well? Yeah.
Mhm.
Because they're not already pre-existing non-conforming.
Right. So they're not currently protected near that statute. Mhm.
okay.
Something to wrestle with. The other one that doesn't come up a ton, but we need to have language around and can actually get fairly complicated mathematically, There's just lots containing more than one dwelling. So this particularly now comes up with former cottage colonies that are already converted to condo ownership. If you're unfamiliar with that, sometimes condoed properties have exclusive use areas. So in their condo agreement, we've agreed, I get X amount of the lot as my exclusive use and you get your X amount. And when we have those situations and that sort of shared percentage is known, we use that to calculate their applicable lot area.
And those are typically outlined on their deed.
Correct.
That's something that's.
Correct. And where that is not known, if it was, so some condo associations don't define exclusive use area. We then are just dividing that property for the purposes of this calculation, equally among all dwellings on the property. So easiest to do an example with two, right? If you have two houses on a lot that somehow evolved that way over time, and there's no exclusive use area, then we're defining it on 50% of the total parcel area. I worked through an example here that someone could follow where it is not that clean 50%. And so it's just a little bit, excuse me, more math to do of how much of the lot is yours. Okay, now we're sort of treating this as that smaller size lot.
And then if there happens to be 5 or 6 lots and I own 2 of them, I choose to take the building rights from one of them and apply it to my primary one.
Yep.
Which we've done, which we did.
Could certainly get
Did
into
that-
some
did that last year.
complications.
So it does get complex.
So this isn't changing the language, or the process around these lots. It's just adding in an example so that someone can figure out how they actually apply this to their property.
On the conversions of condo. How many sites have we done that to already? Hotels?
I don't know if the top of my,
Yeah,
Like at the beginning of the wave or are we in the middle of the wave?
we're at the end of the wave. I
And-
know that from
That's what.
anecdotally from the health
That's okay.
department that we really only have, I think, maybe
Well,
two
yeah.
operational.
I don't need the numbers. I just want to get that feel. Thanks.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
What else changed in here are many of the trigger points for site plan residential review. We've talked about this. Essentially, this is where we get into some trade-offs. So where these new FAR regulations are reducing the allowable development on lots. What we discussed is these first two triggers that have existed under site plan review. Really are capturing very small additions and expansions. And so we have examples for you of things that have gone through the regulatory process recently, where someone was adding 550 square feet, someone was adding 700 square feet. These go through the whole review process, which is fairly onerous, despite the fact that they are still within their applicable, what will now be FAR, what was site coverage. They're still within their setbacks. If they're not, that's different. That goes to zoning. And so if you take a property that is expanding, but they're within their FAR and they're within their setbacks,
You can
the
have-
trade-off here is those small projects should not have to go through.
So that's the case where an 800 square foot cottage is getting converted into a 1900 square foot house or 1800 square foot.
If they're on a lot that allows
Yeah.
for that, which would be a lot that is over 15,000 square feet.
Right.
What we keep, of course, is that any lot where that proposed expansion, addition, new construction is going to exceed 3,000 square feet, absolutely still goes for site plan review. And is still that threshold for what we consider large projects.
So is it but is it the new construction and expansion is 3,000? Or is it that the property itself will be over 3,000 square feet?
The property itself.
I'm not,
Is that, if that language is confusing, let's,
the proposed will result in a net, well, maybe it's fine.
a net floor area.
It's adding the existing.
Okay, that's fine.
It will result, yeah.
It will result in, okay.
The other change, which we've talked about before, is moving site plan approval, special permit under the purview of the planning board. think we need to discuss that further. Everything else is just cleanup on numbers, grammar, spelling, those sorts of things. I'm just gonna zip back up to the memo
You had-
quickly to,
Was that exemption piece there all along?
yes.
Before now?
Those exemptions already existed. We did not have them in their own category, which has made them hard to find and remember for some people. So, it's just where you see that it isn't struck out and it isn't blue. These are the exact same exemptions. They're just now clarified in their own category. I'm thinking-
So by definition, so if I had a house that was 3,000 square feet and I added 200. So it's not so much just going over the 3,000. So I could be at 2,900, add 200 feet to 3,100, and I don't have to go to planning. So there's a 200-foot exemption. So it's not every project that results in
No, I
3,000.
thought it was over, I was reading it that any project over three
That
thousand.
results, that's what
Mhm.
that's what that line says, any project that
Yeah,
results in.
that's what I was assuming.
But when you get down to the exemption, if it was only a 200-foot addition that triggered that,
Mhm.
that nullifies that trigger.
I don't think that was the intent of what we wanted to
Well,
do.
that's why I'm bringing it up. I thought.
Yeah.
I thought-
No, that's good.
No, and that's an existing conflict. We could add to the exemption language.
Well, let's talk about it for a second. Is that a big deal? Someone's putting on an extra bathroom on their house. Do you want to go through the planning process? Because that's what 200 square feet.
Well, you may already have the largest house in the neighborhood.
Yeah, no.
And I know it's small, but I keep hearing from folks from the
Well, yeah,
planning
I'm on
board
the
that,
fence because like
Yeah.
for 200 feet.
That's a lot of work for the town and for the
Right.
boards.
It's also if your house is already over 3,000 square feet. It's not necessarily already gone through planning, but most of them have. There
Yeah.
weren't a lot of them prior to.
and now you've then
Years.
capped, if you're pre-existing non-conforming and you get an addition that says, yeah, you can do 200 or 300 more square feet.
Yeah.
Are you though capped out for lifetime or?
You keep coming back.
For the life of the bylaw.
So I would build a house at 2,950. And then 2 years later, add that 200 square foot breezeway. that
Yeah, I know.
Put
Yeah,
in.
it has to
That's
be
the game.
one time only limit.
It's-
You can just, because after you that 200 plus 200, all of a sudden, we're gonna reconfigure, but we're not adding in more space, but now we got a 600 square
Are
feet.
you familiar with Cape Cod architecture?
I mean, the existing statute is that there is no more than one exception within a 5-year period.
Right.
I think if someone's really devoted to the legacy of their property and they're gonna schedule out 200 square feet every 5 years. Doesn't sound extremely likely.
So was this, so what do we feel? I'm okay if there's an exemption. Not to trigger all this issue, maybe 200 feet might be too
Well,
big. Maybe if
Let's just let's go with the question. I get these numbers wrong. It's either 88 or 85% of the residential properties in this town are pre-existing non-conforming.
Mhm.
So,
Really?
yeah, no, so
Wow.
this
Which is
is,
not uncommon.
this is all of us, so.
Mhm.
You know, I just. I mean, the whole issue here is the angry neighbors and the rate of
Right.
change and.
So this is where special permit comes into play though, right? Is that special permit is required for an addition, expansion or construction on a pre-existing non-conforming
Do butters get notified for?
on floor area
Or
regulations.
change- maybe,
Yeah, and this
but you
exemption,
can't go over the limit.
Right.
Okay.
So if you are at your FAR limit,
Yeah,
you can't add on the 200 square feet. If you're,
Right. It's exempt from site plan review, but it's not gonna make it through the building commissioner.
so
Because
just
it's not
say
gonna
if you're at
say
40,
that
if
it's
you're at
required.
4,800 square feet and your FAR, like you can't add, you're done. You can't add 200 square.
even the pre-existing non-conforming cannot.
No, the pre-existing non-conforming
Can,
but
well, that's what I think what we were talking,
that,
but
okay,
this exemption is for the entire rule, not just that subset of pre-existing. The exemption at 744(9).
okay, so that,
Right, that also applies to an 800 square foot cottage where someone is adding a 195 square foot bathroom.
So as far as exceeding your FAR, this won't allow you to exceed the FAR. But and it could potentially allow you to skip planning.
Right.
So
It would
So
allow you to
it's
get planning as long as you're still,
So if I have,
Within
so let's say I
all
have
the
a
other
3,500 square foot house and my fire is fine, I get huge lot. At 3,500 square feet and I want to add 200. Well, now my house is 3,700 square feet. Do I have to go to planning for that?
if you're still inside your farm.
Okay,
Because it's in,
Right, you're over the 3,000, but we're not making you. Anytime you're over 3,000. If you're only doing 200 square foot, you don't go to site plan review.
okay, that's what I want to
If
do.
you're doing more than 200,
If you're doing more than 200.
you
go.
get a site plan review. And so you're saying that pre-existing non-conforming, are you saying they still
If you're
deal with
pre,
the cap?
if you're pre-existing non-conforming, you'll have to, well, you're already over the cap to begin with. But if you wanna add, you would have to go for a special permit no matter what.
No matter what?
Right. Cause that's not site plan residential, that's special permit. This is exempting you from site plan residential
And is a special permit going to be through zoning or through planning?
planning. So. You're over 3,000, you're over your FAR, you wanna add 200 square feet. You gotta go to the board. That one, you're in the process, you can't escape that one because you're already. You're already over the limits.
But you could have a very large lot and wanna do something,
Yeah,
but you still can't go over the limits, or potentially you could. Could you potentially
no,
go over
well, you're-
4,800? No.
No. But there may be somewhere out there, there might be a house somewhere, I don't know, that is. Already over 4,800.
Okay,
If they want to add on,
I get it.
then they would
I get
do
it.
11% of their max would be 11% of their 5,000 square foot house. And they would have to go for special permit, which doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to do that, get that, they would have to still. Demonstrate that. Now creating a 5,500 square foot house is not gonna be detrimental, the board would have discretion to approve or deny that.
which brings me back, you are coming up, or working on, I should say, some more objective criteria, checklist type thing. How is that? Person.
I'm waiting for some feedback on that. Get your feedback too. So Kevin's referencing a rubric that we've created for site plan review. For the planning board, and in the event of a site plan review, then the zoning board would use to actually score the criteria. To make it a more objective. Way of looking at the squishier things, your landscaping, your driveway. Materials, maybe, to say, yes, this is, or no, this isn't. So I think that's gonna help in the process as well to get them more. Clear on their criteria.
So
I think
even,
we're gonna talk about that on the 28th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and even
I mean,
on,
no, I'm sorry, the planning.
21st.
21st.
Mhm.
okay. and
Is
even-
that something, Jackie, that should be included in the memo? Just as a point,
I think it should be included in the report.
Yes, I think it should be included in the
Okay.
report. Um,
okay, good, in the report's fine.
yeah. Yeah, I don't wanna confuse the message.
So I wanna just clarify, so based on your last statement to me, so, they would have to go for special permit, all non-conforming. So but to your point about criteria, a special permit is something that legally the planning board can say no to.
Correct.
They don't, so when you get into those, the person who wants to build the obnoxiously big thing, I mean, this is the no place, this is the place that the board can say no to, and force a change. Just another thought, I got enormous amount of positive feedback, the last time we did development limits in this report. I literally went to Redfin and I downloaded, I tried to get all Eastham, I think I have 2 Orleans in
Yep,
here.
yep.
And it was like, here's what the current max is,
Mhm.
here's what the current max will look like.
Yep.
And I had more people just say to me, the visual just
Mhm.
helped me understand this.
Yep.
And it's interesting because the only visual that people were nervous about back then was the 6,000 square foot home. That's the one I got the most.
Mary, where did you show this?
This was when we did development limits. This was the March of 2023 report. But we just took every site, and I just downloaded it off Redfin and I said, here's what our limit is, here's what the thing of the house should have.
Happy to do that. I was thinking it would also be helpful, because I think there's the way of looking at the house, which depending on where the picture is taken from, can look one way or another, so we'll find good pictures for that. Of also including a couple of sample site plans. That, so you get that, bird's eye view of, this is what it looks like at 6,000 square feet, at 4,800 square feet, at 3,000 square feet.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be good. That'd be good.
Okay.
Any other questions on this, site coverage? I'm gonna read your memo
So,
again, Jack.
One thing
Yeah.
to summarize, I think what we've accomplished is addressing the issue that the planning board mentioned at our joint workshop that, let's change the numbers. What I'm hoping is that whatever the size of the house, it's coming in under these FAR numbers, that we're comfortable with that. So I'm trying to still be part of and resolve that issue of you're under the limit, but you're still way bigger than the rest of the neighborhood. That's where we keep getting in that. So the thought is like, even if you're still way big for the neighborhood, these numbers are now adjusted where
It's not as way big.
it's not as way big. We can,
That's the word.
But then
Not
again,
to
it's
scrutinize
that
the-
one house that sticks out like a sore thumb. Perhaps the subjective, now turning
Yeah.
objective criteria can still rein that in.
that's.
And I guess the other thing is too, I've mentioned this before a couple times, that if you've got a neighborhood that has, 12 small lots and one big lot. That doesn't bother me quite so much as a neighborhood that has 12 small lots and 4 big lots, because that you get into the
Yeah.
slippery slope thing. You do it for one, do it for two, all of a sudden now you've got,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So again, if it's a neighborhood of one large lot, I'm not as concerned about it. I mean, it's still big, and I like the bigness, and the neighbors can decide what they like or not like, but there's no perfect answer to it.
I think
So it's,
what I think is gonna be the usefulness of the rubric also is just because it'll help work through those exceptional projects, but also I think guide the board into like where to focus, so it's not just like 7 individuals casting about what they think, well, do we solve this with landscaping? Do we solve this with, it's like, we'll have some sort of scoring that can kind of get everybody towards, okay, clearly on the scoring, this is the thing that's lacking, and maybe that's the thing we can kind of have consensus, so let's fix that, because that's gonna, I mean, again, nothing's ever gonna be perfect, but it gets us at least more objective. But we'll see,
Well, I'm sort of interested to see how that scoring works with, potentially new limits, because if there's still an agitation, one of the things that we keep kicking down the road, because we just don't have the time, is looking at design guidelines for residential properties, and whether it's just macro guidelines, or even, getting into the issues of percentages of glass on the side, or there's just a lot of detail we haven't done, and if we're not gonna do it right away. But hopefully, if your criteria gives the board a little more ability to maneuver. So,
Is there a feeling that Kevin's point about when there's a bunch of small lots together, is there a feeling that in the future we may want to go into having sub-districts to protect some of these cottage communities?
and it's a tool, it's an option.
Yeah.
We haven't really got into it though.
no, I mean, I think that, yeah, I mean, we kicked it around a few years ago would we take a look at historic districts? And I think we concluded that needed to be a committee unto itself. Cause that's like,
Oh, right, because you want, they're buying.
no, it's so
I know.
between the federal and the state and the local regs and so we didn't do it with historic. And I thought as we go back and look at the multifamily in District D, we could start looking at it in terms of continuing Route 6, but.
Okay.
I don't know.
Mhm.
All right, do you wanna get,
Yeah, we just gotta use the restroom, I'll get Rachel.
Rachel down here? We do inclusionary.
While we're waiting for Rachel, just a comment, Jackie, this is a huge piece of work,
Yes, yes.
very
yes.
complicated and really good job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Because we were doing this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
While we're in between, I'm curious, I'm not familiar with site plan, I've never gone through
Yeah.
that myself.
Mhm.
I keep hearing how onerous it is. Are we okay with how onerous it is, or is that something to look at in the future?
I think. I will say personally, I am with the changes that we're proposing here. Some of the projects that I have helped through that regulatory process in the last year. Where someone really is just trying to rearrange so that they have a bedroom that also has a closet. Because they're gonna live here full time now, or those sorts of things where they're adding
Mhm.
under 1,000 square feet. They're otherwise conforming in all the ways. They're spending quite a bit of money, not just on the filing fees, which can get, depending on how many butters you have. I mean, off the top, it costs you $400 to $900 for most people just to file your application. You then. There is that higher burden of preparing the application. Well, now I need my architect to give me time. Those are billable hours. I need my builder's input. Those are billable hours. Some folks look at it and feel so overwhelmed by it that they're saying, I think I really need a lawyer. And if they really didn't. And now they're paying those billable hours. So, I mean, yeah, people are telling us they're spending, if they've also used a lawyer, 10,000,
Wow.
which if you're adding 600 square feet to your house and now you have an
Yeah.
additional $10,000, that was your whole bathroom.
So,
Yeah.
So I worry about that. It's also the time that it takes because the filing date is a month before the meeting. Takes people a month or so to do the application. For most people, unless they have a lawyer who's,
Yeah.
can do it right away, then you're waiting a month. If you get continued. Or there isn't a quorum, or forget to post the agenda and the meeting gets canceled. Only done that once in a full 12 months. That's another month. And so again, like actually the one that was at ZBA last night. And they needed to be, but it was a probably 4-month stretch.
Wow.
From the time that they said, can you look at this and tell us if we're ready to put in our permit? You're going, ooh, actually, so.
For those that you think need to be justifiably at a site plan review, is the site plan process working well?
I think so. I think having a more defined rubric, those criteria is gonna help. I think what is most helpful is actually the projects that do take the time to have some preliminary meetings. So to come in with their designs and ask in the department. Do you see anything here that's likely to cause a problem? And we're on, right? I will say,
Yeah.
well, yes, your design is 5,000 square feet. I think that's likely to cause a problem. Right, so there is sort of a participation process, for those, that I think works.
Your question about site plan review, I'll just give a quick update on, I don't want to, we're moving on to another topic.
Yeah.
Rachel, you can sit at the table.
Yeah.
Sure.
You can have a muffin too.
Oh, no.
and, to this point, to Tom's point. There are a number of proposals in here that will actually streamline the process, make it more efficient. Based on our last conversation, take some people out of the equation.
Mhm.
We should really highlight that.
Mhm.
I mean, we should highlight that for small projects, efficiencies, et cetera, you know, when we do the report and then, you know, kind of offsetting, you know, for a lot of small things, we're trying to make it really streamlined.
Yeah.
And we're tightening up for the bigger things.
Yeah, and that's in the memo, that's sort of, we see it sort of that trade-off.
I mean, in this memo, I mean, all of your memos are super appropriate for us and for like the planning and the group. It's just that and I can work with you, we need to rethink that when we're going to the general public, because
Oh, yeah.
then we'll simplify that.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we, good?
We're good.
Rachel has joined us. Rachel is the town's housing coordinator, and we're gonna discuss the inclusionary, which I think is the last one. We get a half hour? Great. What page are we on?
The memo starts on page 23.
Yeah.
23?
The draft amendment starts on
Okay, here we go.
another page, so just
Do you have a packet? I don't have any of that.
not in paper, we're putting it all up. You want me to print you out this section?
I think, did I forget to email it to you?
Yeah.
Sorry. You want, I can give you a hard copy.
Thank you.
Okay,
So-
Would you say again what page it is, please?
23?
23, got it.
The memo 25 is the draft.
Okay. Who,
Got it.
Paula, who's walking through this one?
All of us.
Oh,
It takes all of us.
takes village to this one, okay?
Takes Jackie and Rachel to help me. So this, I think I still need to go through and make sure we're getting all the strikeouts and everything for like the official warrant article, but this is basically the cleaned up version. The overarching thing is we're proposing to take this out of a special permit unto itself, which is right now. So basically, the developer is gonna go to the appropriate boards based on what they're triggering for review. It's just that this just gets folded into that. Just a little, it makes it a little cleaner, one less regulatory approval you need, it's all wrapped into whatever else is going.
See, help me understand, so is it,
Right now, like right now, someone would have to come in, you'd say, you're triggering site plan. Major site plan review or
Yeah.
site plan special permit, and you have to get that, and you have to get a special permit for the inclusionary.
so you have to get two special,
So we're proposing to not make it a
Okay.
special permit.
okay,
Definitions,
Those
we went through those last time.
There are a lot of them.
So we put the chart back to 20%. So projects that have a total of 9+ units. 20% of them have to be inclusionary units. Half of those at the developer's choice. Half of those have to be
affordable,
affordable. The developer could choose to do 100% of them or some other percent affordable, but if that works for them, but at least half have to be affordable. At 80% or below. The number 1, 2, and 3 under the chart, one was there, 2, that's basically 2 is what spells that out. If you're creating 2 or more inclusionary units, all affordable have to qualify for the town's SHI. So that would be the ones where you got 9+, you're doing the 20%.
mhm,
All of the affordable have to be on the SHI, developer's gonna have to do the full state compliance, do a lottery, do the tenant selection, the marketing, all that stuff. The smaller projects, 5 to 8 units, is, I put this in here just to be explicit about it, number 3. Those 5 to 8 units, you're only creating one inclusionary unit, that one has to be an affordable, but we're not going to
mhm,
require it's on the SHI, so
Mhm.
it's. We'll do a local regulatory agreement, you don't have to do the marketing, you don't have to incur all that time and expense for that. But it won't count on the SHI, so. remember if there was any other discussion points on that or.
Is some of the numbering messed up as I'm reaching through to find stuff? Like
Quite
7776
Mhm.
goes to 7771 under it. Or
Yeah, we
776.
haven't done that yet.
Okay,
One.
all right, yeah. I was getting confused with trying to find where I am. And I guess the footnotes probably come out too, right?
Yeah,
The
no,
footnotes are all from Alexis.
Yeah,
They're,
yeah.
they're not actually bylaw notes, so.
Right.
I actually,
So they come out.
we should probably take those out because they're kind of
I
like.
tried, I couldn't,
Oh, you couldn't take them
well,
out?
I deleted the footnote number, but the note stayed, so I was messing with it later.
Yeah, this is, the others that we've looked at today are already in their draft warrant article form. This is not yet.
Okay.
Got it.
The fractional units, again, this just was a change, you would round up to the nearest whole number. The thought is this gives the developer an option of they could round up to the nearest whole number, create the unit, or they could take the fraction and use that to calculate the fee. This
Okay.
gives the developer a little bit of flexibility, and this is actually relates to the change from the 15% and the 20% that we had in the chart the last time.
Well, this is very clear
Yeah,
to me. If somebody wants to round up because they're building 9 units, they can. That 7.7.5.2, that's not defined yet.
which one, 7?
When you refer to the fee outline in subsection 7752.
We will get there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
later on, yeah.
There was a question at our last discussion about the the boundaries of 10%, 20%, and I can't remember the exact numbers before, but the question was, can we go with 20?
So
So you're saying that's good?
Alexis's recommendation was 15% for 9 units and above. At our last meeting, when we looked at that laid out on a spreadsheet as compared to our current numbers, you all identified that particularly once we hit 17 total units, we started to lose required inclusionary units. And so we had a lot of back and forth with her yesterday, on what that means. So bumping it back up to 20 means that we don't lose any of the required units. So if someone's looking at what would be required currently versus what would be required under this, we are not reducing the number of inclusionary units that have the potential for creation. Her pushback, curiosity, was to see if the market will actually support that. Or it is coming up with some housing advocates that developers look at anything over 15% as not a strong financial feasibility. But she's talking over the bridge. So I don't know that it's a direct correlation between what they're seeing in MBTA communities and what we're seeing in seasonal communities.
Well, I mean,
Maybe something we have to revisit after, in the future when we get some of these and we see, but
Hmm.
I mean, one of the concerns I have, and it doesn't address the feasibility issue, it just addresses the nature of development here, is when we look at our land use patterns going forward, aside from maybe tea time or McGregor's, we don't have land in which large projects are going to happen. We're gonna have a town where, as it redevelops, we're gonna have top of the shop, 5 or 6 units. We're gonna have, stuff maybe along Route 6 that if we get multifamily in, but even still with the lot sizes, we still might be doing smaller numbers. So that's my concern. If we have a lot of smaller projects and we don't have any affordable housing projects in the town, it's, where do we get this number if we don't have it in here? I mean, I just don't, if the town had an aggressive affordable housing development program, it would be less of a concern.
Yeah.
But we don't have that.
So Mary, are you trying to say that the 5 to 8 units should be 20%?
No, I don't think that's, I know, I think we get a lot of pushback about the financial feasibility. It's
Right.
just with the over. I mean, I know there's this issue, but to be perfectly honest, it's an issue we're gonna have to deal with. The town's gonna have to deal with is, okay, once we get over, the 10 units and we have, things are going on the SHI, how is the administrative mechanism for managing these small projects? I mean, is it, is it contracting with like a hack of the world, or it's, or building internal, I mean, that has to be figured out. We can put these numbers in any little place, but soon as we trigger that, we have to figure out the management and oversight of that.
Does this have any onerous implications for Tea Time? The Tea Time Development Northeast Town Center stuff?
It would be subject to.
Yeah, we subject to
inclusion.
this.
Yeah,
Are we okay with that?
yeah, well, we anticipate that it would, any development that we'd be baking into the RFP it would work out that way, and
Yeah.
it's just given the numbers and
Yeah.
with the,
I mean, I think it's a very good thing to do, barring any issues with causing the project to not succeed financially.
I mean, it's for what it's worth, the difference. Well, through all of that spreadsheet, the difference between 15% requirement and a 20% requirement is 1 unit.
Yeah, okay, so you've looked at
We're not
that.
talking about like a massive.
That's what we thought
Drop
based
below
on,
base in units. So for example, at a 12 total unit project, which seems pretty reasonable for a lot of our, spaces. At 20%, it's 2.4. At 15%, it's 1.8. So if I'm the developer at 1.8, I'm gonna do 2. Because donating that 0.8 to the Affordable Housing Trust is a lot of money. If I'm at 2.4, that might be a harder decision. Do I build 3 or do I donate the equivalent of that 0.4, which may be less over time?
Last night, because I had nothing to do, I went through and I did a chart of the current and what would happen at 20%. And I got that pretty much everything stays the same. I think at 17.
Yeah.
It's
we do.
with 20% would be down by 1 unit. But everything else, I went 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. And they came out the same. And I rounded.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'd be interested in your thoughts, Rachel.
I was in on the conversation with Alexis yesterday as well, and basically what she was saying was that it's really up to you in the long run, but I agree with the decision of the 20% that Paul and sorry, Jackie has put in the grid there. I mean, I think it's and I like the piece with the fractional where they can make the decision whether or not their pro forma is gonna work financially. Or to add another unit or to give a fee in one. One of the things that did come up, and I think it may have come up here before too, is just making sure that the trust has a plan for how we accept those funds and what, we want to do with them and like a business plan for those fees.
what do you think would be done with them? What do you envision?
I hadn't really, it really depends on how much you get too. I mean, some of the fees may not be enough to do a lot with.
But
So I think
they
that will be a conversation for the trust to have.
so another thing we're working on is we're gonna be updating the housing production plan. And I'm gonna be kind of rolling into I'm gonna hire a consultant to help that, but I want to update the housing production plan, also update the housing trust guidelines. Which part of that will be baking into that, what the financial, plan, if you will, or how utilizing the funds so that when we start to get these funds in, it's all played out. So that was something that came up in our regional housing as a best practice, so.
How does the new law that allows towns to set up housing trusts, like the fundraising vehicles of housing trusts? Oh, that's in the seasonal regulations, they're defining it now.
Seasonal allows a town to create just a housing trust, which could be a year-round housing so that the money can be spent not just for affordable, for workforce or for whatever. Right?
I think their definition right now is up to 200%.
Yeah. We're still.
Is that a
waiting-
different trust than the trust
That's
we have?
waiting for clarification if that's a different trust or can the housing trust be
Absorb.
converted into,
That, an affordable section and a
Yeah.
workforce section.
some towns have two right now, it's under the old way, like P-Town has an affordable, and then they have.
They have an
workforce, attainable.
workforce, yeah.
What I'm hoping is that this can all just be merged into one entity, can do it all, but we have to
Yeah, they-
verify that.
And they also have, and that may even be because they have Harbor Hill that the town owns, it's a market rate, so they oversee that.
Yeah.
When the seasonal communities was being proposed, I thought that these trusts, I may be wrong, there was a trust that got established in Martha's Vineyard with some very big investment bankers to do, I mean, they were so concerned about affordable housing, they set up a trust. And that was the model. It's a fundraising vehicle for people who wanna donate property or donate money, not just developers, but more broadly. I thought that was the model that this was coming out of. Am I mistaken?
No, it might be, I'm not sure if that was what it was based on.
Okay,
My understanding is we can accept donations now.
are you a nonprofit though?
No,
Yes,
The town, the Affordable Housing Trust can accept donations.
You're a nonprofit organization? Carolyn?
No, it's
yes.
It's a not-for-profit.
It,
which is
it,
different,
it,
right?
it is established so that we can accept donations. Whether the donation is tax deductible as a nonprofit is something that we do not claim or give any tax advice on. That
Are
gets,
you a 501c3?
No.
no,
Different.
it's a different kind of animal.
Okay, all right,
it is something we've been discussing and it is
Yeah.
gonna be part of the housing production plan
Right.
discussion.
Yes,
When it comes to tie that back into development, so when the developer wants to know, well, I either build 2 units or I donate this money to the housing trust and take the write-off. We're saying there may or may not be
all right.
ability for him to get the write-off.
I know, good question.
As far as I'm concerned, the write-off is a good thing because
Yeah.
that's him leverage
Right.
federal money
Yeah,
back into the town because we get the benefit of the house, but the write-off is a more
Yeah.
federal issue.
yeah.
So allowing him to write it off is.
right. That is something that we're looking at and trying to figure out. We do know that we can take the donation and use it for the good of the trust and the what am I trying to say? The purposes of the trust. But that's different than giving someone tax advice of what they can and can't do. Because we would
Well, I
never,
mean-
in no scenario, I think, would we ever want to give someone specific tax advice.
No, you wouldn't want to give them tax advice, Carolyn, but you would be able to give them a letter saying you've made a charitable contribution of X, $100,000.
Right,
And they
right.
could then use, if you were a 501c3, they could take a tax deduction.
Correct.
I think in terms of future fundraising, that just would be a very important. Because if you think about it, I went out to people, I did a bequest program in Brewster. And I tell every housing person in the world, I did a trifold brochure and said, if you go, I'll take care of your cat.
Right, that's
I
right.
think $2 million
That's right.
each from a trifold brochure that sent to like 5,000 people.
Yes.
Take your cat. Cats
Lot of
lasted
cats.
about 3 weeks after people died. I got 22 cats.
Old people.
We treated them really well for the 3 weeks.
Yeah. Mary, we have 10 minutes. Mary, we have 10 minutes.
We never had big liability.
Right, Carolyn's trying to say
I'm
something.
sorry.
Keeping us on time.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to say, the trust is aware of that issue and we'll be addressing that as Paul described. We're trying to restructure the trust in a couple of different ways. And that'll, we only have 10 minutes left in our discussion.
Okay. What else do we have? What other comments do we have on
Let's
this?
go. Let's move along. Moving right
We're
along.
gonna go to 7, the alternative payment formula.
No, further down.
7552, I think.
Yeah, the numberings.
It's a 775. It's blank.
Page 29.
Well, we don't have incentives right now for additional inclusionary housing units. I don't think this is one where we did that. Because this got, in DCPC, we were able to tie height bonuses, but we have not done detailed design stuff
Right.
in other districts, so to throw in a height, we can't just randomly throw in a height bonus or, I mean, I understand this is a gap in our, where we are right now, but what's the alternative?
I think I think in the future, we can put incentives, it's just figuring out what those are, and just don't have time to do it right now. I think if and when we allow multifamily in other parts of the town, like in the residential district, if we do this single family to multifamily conversion bylaw or something like that could be worked in as an
Absolutely.
incentive.
Yeah.
In the actual draft for the warrant, we won't keep the title incentives traditional, we can just reserve the numbering.
Sure.
So that if and when we're ready to put those in, we're not then renumbering everything. We're just plopping in.
Well, or could we refer from here to the DCPC where we do have the height bonus baked into what we did?
I mean, they
because
would
so-
get that anyway,
Right,
if they're in the
but,
DCPC.
right,
I mean, it could just be a reference back to,
just a reference back
I mean,
to,
it could say height bonuses, incentives have been included in DCPCC section five or whatever it is, just to put that.
Well, that's one part of it, but we're referring to 7.7.5.2 above when we want to do the calculation of what the fees in lieu of.
That's just the wrong number. The fee in lieu of calculation is down here.
Okay, where's the calculation? Oh, fees in lieu of 7742. Okay, thank you.
maybe at a minimum, the referencing to the inclusionary zoning bonus in DCPC goes in the memo, the cover memo, and or the
Mhm.
report. I want to be sure we bring that to the attention of developers.
Mhm.
And as the town writes the RFP for town center and tea time.
Yeah.
The sections on affordability and these two sections. My thought is that we move these into guidelines. That was what the suggestion of Alexis was.
Mhm.
As there is some fine tuning of this that needs to be done. So what I discussed with Alexis is she's going to be working on the section that will go in the planning board guidelines with the goal of having that done in time for the March 18th planning board hearing, or at least a week before, so everyone can look at it. Because these are parts that we may want to adjust on the fly as time goes on without having to redo the bylaw every time, so we'll have that before the public hearing for everyone to look at, and then if it works out, the planning board could just adopt them at that time.
But is this affordability just sort of referencing back to the government programs though? I mean, are we taking it out? Because how would we change it? I mean, I guess the argument is let's have flexibility, but is there flexibility within this?
Well, it's really just if anything changes with the government on the state side, we don't have to redo the bylaw. So if there's any changes to state policies or programs or anything like that.
Or for example, if you go up just a little bit, Jackie. That one, workforce housing shall be 80 to 120%. We might decide after experience that we want it up to 150%.
But you're saying that would just be a planning board public hearing, not a zoning bylaw change?
Right.
I think planning board and affordable housing trust. because it'll probably, these definitions will end up being mirrored in the guidelines for the Affordable Housing Trust.
Well. So Paul's proposing we take these out. But
Not that we eliminate them, but we put them into the guidelines.
And I
Or
think,
ease of revision.
and I think the suggestion, sorry if you already said this, was that. You know, there is still a reference to this, just not the specific. So take number one, under 7771. It's just subject to planning board rules and regulations as adopted. So it's still clear in the bylaw that you are subject to
Yes.
the rules. as they're
But,
laid out.
but could the planning board, for example, I mean, affordable housing units being 80% or below of AMI is like a standard across the country. By putting it in guidelines, would the planning board be able to change that? I guess, I mean, I understand we might want flexibility, for
Well-
example.
Well, they could change it to the extent that the state allows them to change it, because the first sentence says, unless state laws.
But they can't change it to something that's.
Yeah, but our inclusionary zoning doesn't presume a state subsidy. It just says,
Right, so projects that are built with the state subsidy would be required to do whatever the state tells them. That any projects that got built without a state subsidy. You're right, would be adjustable by the planning committee
But-
from time to time.
but the whole point of this was to establish the affordabilities, was to encode this. So I'm not finding the compelling reason to,
On the A,
Well, if we want workforce units to be 200% the day after town meeting,
I
we have
can
to
see,
go back to town meeting and adjust the zoning bylaw.
and so you can,
But it's,
Can we split-
Rather than just do it through the planning board guidelines.
can we split the baby here and keep the affordable housing, firm, and then allow planning to adjust?
Yeah.
Because if I was to look at the dynamics of the economy, I agree that being able to change what is defined as workforce housing as our economy moves up, goes down. Can't take 18 months to do.
Yeah.
But to Mary's point, the AHU, affordable at 80%, I wouldn't expect to see that change, but it could be dangerous putting it in the hands of a board of volunteers.
yeah, down the road,
How do we give flexibility in the workforce? So, I think Orleans was 60%. Others have allowed a lower limit for workforce,
Arlene's workforce is at 60%.
60.
That seems awfully low.
That seems pretty low.
Is there a way
Let me
to
double
put
check.
limits
Speaking.
Maybe.
No, but workforce.
Subject
the
to
end point, not the-
definition, the county definition?
Yes, yeah, it
Yeah,
didn't kick.
limit the AHU shall be subject to the Barnstable County, the current Barnstable County.
Jackie's talking. Go ahead. Say what you just said, because the
I'm-
end of the table was talking.
I'm thinking out loud, questioning out loud. Is there a compromise in here that, so something like the income limit for an AHU shall be subject to the limit as defined for Barnstable County?
Well, some language like that. So for example, if the seasonal communities, to Paul's point, I think seasonal communities, I think the law says potentially could go up to 200, right? And that we're still waiting for all the regs that says, what does this all mean? And then I heard today something, well, did you say there was another legislative proposal to put it up to 250? Did you say that?
No, that's in the seasonal.
That's a seasonal. 250s in seasonal? Okay. So,
I'm just wondering, just specifically on the capital A affordable projects, if it is simple to tie it to the county regulation, which is standard.
Be based on state or.
Right.
we're more based on state.
Yeah.
But also, so if the county, if the state shifts that, we don't have to go back in and shift it here. It is just subject to the current regulations of the county,
That's a better solution,
but
I think.
but then workforce.
Well, and that could apply.
Subject
also
to planning board.
To Well, isn't the workforce is 80 to 120, okay. I
So,
get it.
well, then there's that question is, would you want workforce to be town specific or county specific?
There is no county or state workforce housing definition
So
at
it has
this
to be.
point,
Yeah.
so.
And I think
Yeah.
that, and I do think that's regional. I think that the work, what we define as workforce housing is dramatically different from people in other parts of the state. So I like the idea of keeping that in control of a town board and tying the affordable units to, like Jackie said, whatever the county number is.
Shouldn't the decider for the workforce definition be the select board?
Yeah, exactly. I said a
Yeah.
board. I wasn't being specific on which board, but that's the next.
Good idea.
Yes.
I guess why do we even need that stuff in the bylaw or the guidelines? We just are referring to for work, for affordable, for,
You could
Referring
say
to
the town's current accepted units and
right, for affordable, we're referring to state, county. For workforce, it's as per select board policy, whatever, and then you know.
Up to a maximum allowable by law.
Right.
Cause they
So
were,
Yeah.
maybe none of these numbers and percentages have to be anywhere.
yes, that's a good point.
Well, we can, I'll talk to
Can
Alexis
you-
about that.
Yeah, I like that, Paul.
A would refer to the county or the state, and B would refer to the current town.
Policy.
And I do agree, I'd rather see it go through the select board. I do have a question again, as I did 2 weeks ago, about why is there a minimum on the workforce housing?
It just shows the range. That's all.
But if I'm a workforce guy making, I do have a unit, and I'm making only, below the minimum. I don't qualify for workforce housing, where my employee wants to give it to me,
I
but I
think
don't.
the assumption is that they would qualify for the affordable.
Well,
housing. And with the work,
where's our
Right.
affordable housing?
well, with the workforce housing, they have to be able to afford
for the rent,
to rent, so it aligns with.
cause the 80 to
That's
120. The workforce is still 30% of your income, so they take your income 30%.
It's 30% of the maximum.
So you're saying that if somebody who's only making 50%, then the landlord is losing money because he's not getting 30% of 80%.
Well, they wouldn't, there's a rent standard and they're not required to flex the rent because of somebody's income. It's because it's not a Section 8, it's not a subsidy. Nobody's getting subsidized that portion of rent that's not being paid. So it's 30% of the maximum income minus utility allowances.
Oh.
But
So
let's say the developer has a choice and he's gonna develop workforce housing unit. And he has someone in mind who earns less than 80%. Why couldn't that person just take one of those workforce units?
Yeah, I mean, he can set the rent lower if they it doesn't have to be at the
It
top.
would be the landlord who would set the rent lower
Right.
for that person
Right.
he knows.
Is the rent adjusted by the individual case or based
No.
on?
Well, it's based on annual income limits, which
Right.
then adjusts the rents, but that doesn't mean they have to charge the maximum.
Right, but what I'm curious about is for instance, on an AHU 80%. Right, is the income limit, how do they set the rent for that? It's based on the 80% number average?
Yes.
Or is it based on the family that moves in and a particular?
It's based on what's put out by the state. So the state
Okay.
puts out the income limits, when HUD puts them out,
Right,
and then they set a standard maximum rent scale.
so if someone comes in that's 60% AMU, they get, their rent is adjusted for that.
They would
income.
move into they'd have to be able to afford the rent for a 60% unit. If they went into an 80% unit, they may not be able to afford the rent,
So the unit,
but, like they were saying, a landlord could choose not to charge the maximum rent, and that way it would be affordable to the tenant.
so the landlord establishes this unit is gonna be an 80%
Right.
unit, and people that move in have to be able
Be
to
able to
afford.
That,
I see, okay.
So, but I'm wondering why for a workforce housing unit, it has to be above 80%.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
It's just,
Who says that?
Yeah.
it doesn't have to, but if they have to be able to afford the rent, basically, is that.
But why not say, if we were gonna state it, income limit shall be no higher than 120%?
You can do that.
You could do that.
Yeah, you could do, but this is, Pat, I would say, every housing project in the state uses these ranges. So like everybody who does this would know exactly what that means.
Right, except
Right.
we are saying that for some of our units, we don't want them on SHI, we want them to be affordable. And so why not have a workforce housing unit that's less than 80%?
Well, it would be an affordable unit then.
It's just a semantics
If you're
term.
forcing you can't force a developer to do because then you'd be forcing a developer to do too affordable, and really gets the issue of financial feasibility, since we're not at a point where we're offering a lot of big incentives.
Right.
And that's where you get the 80% is the standard for affordable housing, 80% below.
Right.
So otherwise, like she said, it's considered affordable.
One of my concerns was like, if a family is qualified for a workforce, moves in, one of them loses their job, they fall below the 80% number, do they get kicked out?
They shouldn't, no.
But if we set that limit there,
Well, no, in the way I did it in my previous life as a property manager, you have to be initially eligible. I mean, it really defeats the purpose of affordable housing if you're kicking people out just because they've been a little bit successful, or they've gone below the income limit. When somebody's lost a job, there's, case management kind of kicks in and you refer people to programs. If it's going to be a long-term thing, you may refer them to, job training or applying for a subsidy, or maybe just something to get them over the hump to help pay with their utilities or their rent if it was due to an injury. So, but once you're eligible, you're always eligible. It's the first year's a qualifying year. You're not required to kick somebody out, but if they can't meet the rent obligations, because you're not obligated to lower the rent, then you would help them maybe do other applications for something they would, apply for. And for a private landlord, they may not want to have them do that, and they may lower the rent. It's really up to them.
So when so that's on the low side. Thanks very much. But on the high side, so if somebody comes in and they like said, that first year is their qualifying year, and within 3 or 4 or 5 years, they've far outstripped the 80%, what's the recourse there?
They've got.
Someone's income just keeps, they got in for the first few years, they were in the 80%.
But a lot of nonprofits, I mean, I talked to one the other day, I mean, they do annual income certifications, and if you go over, that's when case management kicks in. You can't indefinitely have growing income and have a subsidized unit, and the thing is, for a lot of these.
That's actually,
That's so difficult, what you're saying.
yeah, so,
Well, I mean, you have a Section 8 certificate, or you have, I mean.
yeah, you still can't, if somebody goes over income, for subsidized housing, I'm not talking individual landlords.
Yes,
It's called the next available unit.
Yeah.
And back in the day, when people did go over income, it was easy for them to move on sometimes, or to purchase
Yeah.
an affordable home.
Once you can afford it, you'd want it.
Right, in the last few years, there's the housing
Yeah.
is,
out there.
yeah, so you can't, you're not required to kick anybody out or evict them because their income has increased. The income,
Can you agree, but will their rent go up?
yes,
So
depending on speaking strictly affordable housing programs, yes, depending on the program.
if their rent goes up because those tenants can afford it,
So
then
what
does the landlord have to create a separate AHU to take its place?
no, they don't have to do that. It would be the next, so when and if like their unit becomes available, they just have to ensure that the next person moving in fits the affordable whatever criteria.
All right,
Right, that's another way that we're losing units, potentially.
No, it's just out of compliance for hopefully, not too long, but a lot of times you see people also as they age, their income then goes back down. So people are staying in these units a lot longer than they used to.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we've now run 9 minutes over. On this one, I think I think we're coming to the conclusion that, or consensus that pulling this out for regs is a good thing, but we need some language here. And you guys are gonna work on some language, tightening up language. Is there anything else in this section? So
I have one more thing.
Yeah.
Back at 7742, the fees in lieu. I can understand how you can look at a for sale unit and figure out the amount. I don't understand how you figure out the amount for a rental unit.
Neither do we. We are,
You're asking the tough question.
The county
Need more
puts,
muffins for
the
that.
county puts out, yeah, the county puts out, rent standards based on the state. And they've recently, gone with a higher income limit as well. I think they have rent standards up to 200%.
but I don't think
But-
we
But
can't.
how do we calculate the value that would be applied to the fee in lieu?
That was my
Sorry,
question.
misunderstood. Sorry.
Oh, well, there's a way of,
And who does that?
then you need a real estate finance person to do that, there's a way of doing that, of calculating the value of that.
For instance, Carolyn, a quick question. Does the housing trust, do they have the ability to purchase affordable housing easements on third-party properties?
That's one of the programs that we want to develop.
So the example that when money's coming in on these lieu of fees, it doesn't necessarily mean you're building something. You might go to another developer and say, oh, you're building these units. We've got an extra $200,000 if you build that one extra unit and you build it.
Right.
And that would be another way
Purchase
that we'd be buying that restriction. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
We don't know.
We don't have language to the rental
Okay.
right now.
Okay,
Are we okay with the idea that the planning board is the one that determines the acceptable value?
I think that should be the select board.
But the planning board is looking at it on a per project basis, or is that coming up with a one number that gets applied to all projects until that number gets?
I think it should be the select board. And maybe it's something they do periodically. If they
yeah,
do it,
didn't we talk about yearly, or
yeah,
that there would be a number?
Well, I mean, could it be the select board with based on the recommendation of the planning board and staff's gonna work through it?
That's what I would expect, but,
Yeah, we can look at that.
Okay, so we can make that change.
Yeah, actually, there's a question I had for. I don't know if the planning board can actually. Approve. Like any of the covenants or restrictions or anything, if that has to be select board, because that came up with the condo conversion.
Mhm.
So that, all that might have to change. Cause like the planning board doesn't have authority to like sign a contract. That type of thing has to go by the select board. So even though that's came up with the zoning board, actually. The zoning board approved all the restrictive covenants and the language and everything, but the zoning board doesn't sign it, authorize to sign it, the select board did, so I gotta follow up on. All
Okay,
that might be part of the larger who actually finally approves and signs things.
and in support of developers that want to see predictability when they develop projects, having that, section line, sentence 3, that they may adopt and amend from time to time. That's a scary phrase. Could we say it could be updated on an annual basis instead of from time to time, to at least give people. I don't want that time to time to be the day after I submit my.
And then the updates
proposal.
could stay the same as last year, if that's.
It could be, but the idea that I'm coming, I read all the zoning, now I have my project, and you're like, oh yeah, yesterday we just
Yes,
changed
what?
numbers on you. Now you're gonna pay this, so just.
Yeah,
Okay, make that.
And
to
I'm
Ann.
willing to give, does the planning board have the power or the depth of service here to approve individual projects? To like, say, yeah, we know this is the number, but for this particular project, because of these other circumstances, we're gonna approve this.
I just think the
I'd
planning
like-
board should make a recommendation, which will come through staff to the select board.
Oh, that's just for the number, for the index number. right?
Yeah,
And I agree with that. But at the end of the day, when a big project comes in and there's a lot of other moving parts and planning is saying, because it's this many rental units and there's this many condos and there's this many units for sale. That at the end of the day, are we gonna give, is there enough leeway in the permission that we're allowing the planning board to come and say, in this case, we're gonna accept this particular project. It may not particularly meet all the exact numbers, but there's other reasons. So that's, well, I have to go back to planning again.
With inclusionary zoning no longer being a special permit. They're not asking for permission to use inclusionary zoning, they're just required to do
they're
it.
required. It's not a permission.
Yeah, okay.
Other final comments? Paul, as you, over the next couple of weeks, get some clarity on a couple of these things from Carolyn. Or maybe you tweak a few paragraphs here and there. If you have the time before the, I mean, you could, you're gonna have to circulate a package, obviously, before the meeting, but if you can shoot any updates to the group, that would be great.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments?
Can we just go over the next two meetings now, the schedule, is that right?
We have the 28th
Yeah.
at
5 o'clock
Fine.
5 o'clock,
in the Earl Mountain Room,
Earl Mountain Room,
not in the luncheon.
okay? And, all right. And then looking for you have a big schedule,
I
you didn't bring it
it's on my
on your desk,
login.
try to keep that piece of paper handy and I can't see it.
I did update. I did backfill the date, so.
You
we got
have some
the-
dates?
We
What,
got the 28th.
yeah,
Is something on the 21st?
Planning board
planning
regular,
board.
we'll have our workshop the 21st. So we'll have the regulatory board workshop on the 28th.
Yeah.
After that, we gotta basically I gotta get the legal ads in for the planning board and public hearing, which is March 18th. But after February, March, we're getting into finance committee, strategic planning committee, select board, there's gonna be dates. I have the dates upstairs.
Okay.
so can,
Plugging those in for when they do the warrant articles. I'm open discussion point on what we want to do for any other, just a general public info session. I'm gonna plan to have some open office hours, just myself, to be there at least one night. So there's some miscellaneous things we'll plug in just for, public information.
so,
Whether we want to have extra, I'm anticipating we'll want to have a placeholder after March 18th for this group to meet in case there's any changes from the public hearing.
what I was gonna say is we're meeting on Wednesday, the 28th. Should we put a meeting the following week? And the reason I'm just throwing this out, we may get some feedback that requires us to rework this.
Yeah, you have a placeholder.
And hopefully we have, that placeholder, hopefully we have,
February something.
February something, so they. Aside from the feedback, and hopefully we would have the draft of the report. By that first week in February, that we're, we can talk about a draft of a report, but. In early February, if we want to get something out to the planning board and others before February 18th, so. I'm throwing this out here now, again, if mornings are still working for people. Tuesday, the 3rd, 10 to 12? I mean, I'm throwing that out. Anybody?
Tuesday, March 3rd,
No, February 3rd.
February
This
3rd.
is so we can have a debrief after the orientation plus sign off on the final
I
report.
have my annual physical on 10 a.m.
10 a.m., okay. Do people have early afternoon? Would 1 to 3 work?
noontime either.
Noon time?
I'm not available from 12:30 to 2:30,
Okay,
How about
after 2:30.
I could do that too.
3 to 5?
Yeah, how's that?
3 to, now we get into Kevin's,
Yeah.
Kevin's got a Tuesday night issue.
Hey, maybe put me at, yeah.
Put you as a yes?
Yeah.
3 to 5, Tuesday the 3rd. Okay. 3 to 5, task force. Tuesday the 3rd. Okay,
Are we gonna have a definite meeting or is that a placeholder?
well, I wanted to brief after we do the joint meeting and hopefully this puts a little gun to our head to have at least a draft of a report to go out, because if we're gonna have a public hearing, we should have a
Yes,
draft report.
You're gonna have a report that goes to 28th.
A written report?
What are you,
I was assuming we would have, we're gonna work off of your memorandums and we will do a little explanation,
great,
but the explanation,
great.
We're gonna send out this packet cleaned up.
Cleaned up.
We'll have some PowerPoint slides to walk through some things on the 28th.
okay, good. All right, we are 20 minutes over. Are we good for two meetings? We good? All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second.
move.
Second, all in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Thank you all for hanging in there.